Chapter 493. There were two reasons why Ling Shiqi wanted to come here. The first was that he had taken away the evil spirit's remnant soul twice. The second time, the remnant soul had clearly threatened Ling Shiqi. Even in the minor 5 elements Chaos Grotto Heaven, the evil shadow that Ling Shiqi summoned after activating the finger bone showed killing intent towards him. Since it wanted to kill Ling Shiqi, then Ling Shiqi also wanted to get rid of it to prevent future troubles. The second reason was that he also coveted the evil spirit's great power. Just a finger bone could instantly kill several ice giants comparable to the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. Then how strong was its main body? If he could get his hands on this item, Ling Shiqi's strength would definitely soar by a large margin. He didn't come here blindly. He knew that this evil spirit's strength was tyrannical, so he was naturally prepared. He said to Di Chuan, "Brother Di, I'll have to trouble you to release your strongest spiritual pressure to disturb the evil spirit inside and see how it reacts." Okay. As soon as Di Chuan finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward, and an invisible and powerful spiritual pressure gushed out crazily. After experiencing the tempering of the minor 5 elements Chaos Paradise, his cultivation had improved further. Just his spiritual pressure alone was enough to squeeze the mountain walls until cracks appeared. Ling Shiqi's eyes flashed with a green and white light. Sure enough, in the next moment, a stream of light condensed with evil spirit shot out. This time, Di Chuan was already prepared. His body trembled and an ancient and wild aura appeared. 2 level 5 spiritual swords appeared in his hands. The sword light scattered and the majestic sword intent formed a sword prison that fell down. The gray stream of light broke into the sword prison and immediately penetrated the sword light, but at the same time, its speed slowed down. Ling Shiqi's 10 fingers moved and 10 blood-red lightning bolts shot out. They condensed into a bucket-sized blood-red lightning bolt in the air and stirred into the sword prison, destroying the gray stream of light. Di Chuan waved his arms and the sword prison disappeared. With a ding sound, something fell to the ground. The two of them looked over and saw that it was another finger bone. Ling Shiqi picked up the finger bone. It looked the same as the one he had before, but the fingertip of this finger bone was slightly broken. It should have been destroyed by the thunderclap blood sky finger. This time, the gray light is stronger than last time, Di Chuan said with a serious expression. In other words, after more than 2 months, the evil being had become stronger than before. Judging from the power of the gray light, it was equivalent to the 9th layer of the spirit aperture realm. This level of power was indeed very strong for ordinary spirit aperture realm cultivators, but in front of Ling Shiqi and Di Chuan, it was still not enough. With the two of them working together, they easily received the attack. Ling Shiqi thought for a moment and said, "It still wants to use the same method as last time to force us to retreat. This shows that it is very afraid of us now. Let's continue forward. I want to see how many finger bones it has left." The two of them were bold because of their skills. They raised their feet and walked a few hundred feet forward. However, what welcomed them was only a thick gray evil aura that assaulted their faces. A dense evil aura filled the entire cave, as if it was a flood or a ferocious beast that was rushing towards them. Ling Shiqi formed a seal with his hands and a dark golden light flashed. The ultimate yang seclusion palm stood in front of the two of them. The evil chi surged forward and Ling Shiqi felt a pain in his arm. The evil chi was stronger than he had imagined. Fortunately, the boundless evil chi was destroyed by the ultimate yang seclusion palm when it approached them. As long as Ling Shiqi could withstand it, they would be fine. Di Chuan did not stand by and watch. However, just as he was about to make a move, the 2 gray lights hidden in the evil chi suddenly approached him. Ling Shiqi snorted and a dazzling white light bloomed in his hand. In an instant, it lit up the entire cave. Great radiant fist. Under the holy light of the fist, it illuminated the ages and dispersed the evil chi. All the gray evil chi seemed to have met its natural enemy and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Di Chuan's expression stiffened. He had seen Ling Shiqi use the Great Radiant Fist in the Minor Chaos Paradise. However, at that time, Ling Shiqi's spiritual power was almost depleted and his body was injured. He did not use it alone but chose to combine it with the Black Lotus Demonic Fist. Therefore, Di Chuan did not know how powerful the Great Radiant Fist was. However, not only was Ling Shiqi at his peak, but his cultivation was also one level higher. The power of the Great Radiant Fist was shocking. Di Chuan almost went all out when facing the Grey Light's sudden attack. However, in front of Ling Shiqi, he could break it with a wave of his hand. Fortunately, Di Chuan had already adapted to Ling Shiqi's strength. He was only stunned for a moment before he recovered. He picked up the two things on the ground and handed them to Ling Shiqi. They were still two finger bones, but different from before, they were obviously longer. Ling Shiqi said with a serious expression, "Brother Di, the danger we will encounter next may be even more terrifying. Why don't you leave first?" This. Di Chuan hesitated. To be honest, he really did want to leave. The danger level here was almost at the limit of his ability. If he went further, his life would be in danger. He had just become the winner of the elite club and had a bright future ahead of him. He naturally did not want anything to happen to him here. However, Ling Shiqi had saved him. Although he had also handed over a large number of soul stones, the debt of saving his life was too great. How could a few soul stones compare to that? Therefore, Di Chuan was still somewhat grateful to Ling Shiqi. Moreover, with Ling Shiqi's talent and strength, his future achievements would be far greater than Di Chuan's. It was definitely worth it to make friends with him before the gap between their positions was too big. Therefore, Di Chuan said with certainty, "Brother Liu, why do you say that? No matter how dangerous it is, I will accompany you. I believe that Brother Liu is strong enough, but I won't be a burden." Ling Shiqi really did not expect Di Chuan to say such words. He stared at Di Chuan for a while and suddenly laughed. "Ha, Di Chuan is really a man of character. Alright, let's go in today." About an hour later, the two of them had walked through a long and deep cave. During this time, there were several surprise attacks, but they were all resolved by Ling Shiqi. At this time, the two of them turned a corner and suddenly opened up in front of them. There was a huge hole in front of them. It was a bit similar to the layout of the Blood Garment Pavilion's Shadow Wind Ridge branch. In the center of this space sat an incomparably huge and strange statue. The statue was dozens of feet tall and almost reached the top. Its appearance was similar to the evil shadow summoned by Ling Shiqi when he activated the finger bones. They both had 6 arms. The difference was that this statue actually had 4 limbs and a tail that was as long as a python's. The entire statue was just standing there quietly, but there was a trace of evil aura floating around it. It also had a godlike aura that made people want to kneel down and worship it. Chapter 494. Facing this gigantic statue, Di Chuan even had the urge to turn around and run away. This was not because his will was not strong enough, but because the pressure that penetrated deep into his soul was too strong. Ling Shiqi quickly released his majestic spiritual power to cover the two of them. The invisible majesty finally faded a lot, and Di Chuan breathed a sigh of relief. What Ling Shiqi was most concerned about was that this statue had a total of 10 hands and feet. Upon closer inspection, one could see that the statue's right hand at the bottom only had 1 finger. Presumably, the finger bone that was used to sneak attack them came from there. But what Ling Shiqi found a little strange was that the statue's finger was 5 feet long, but in his hand, it was only the size of a normal finger bone. Grasping this point, Ling Shiqi thought of a possibility. At this moment, there was a caw-caw sound, and the gigantic statue's head slowly turned around. What was surprising was that this statue's face only had a pair of eyes, and everything else was blank. The eyes were as big as a door and window, and suddenly lit up with a light blue light, as if it had awakened. There was no emotion in the eyes, and it looked at Ling Shiqi and Lu Shiqi as if it was looking at two ants. What a trick! Ling Shiqi did not like this feeling at all. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of crimson and blue triune sword qis surged out. The sharp sword intent wreaked havoc, and just by condensing them, they left sword marks on the surrounding walls. The sword qi circled in the air, and then rolled back up, directly hitting the statue's eyes. The blue light in the statue's eyes intensified, and then a thick evil aura appeared in the surrounding space without warning. The evil aura filled the entire space, and the evil aura constantly surged and twisted, like a millstone crushing all the triple sword qi. The statue loomed in and out of the evil aura, and there was a sense of mystery to it. Ling Shiqi's expression also became a lot more serious. His probing attack just now was easily resolved. Although the tri-severing sword qi was not an extremely powerful spiritual technique, it was superior in terms of quantity. Moreover, Ling Shiqi was now at the 6th level of the spirit aperture realm. His strength was very strong, and he was not weaker than a spirit cultivator who had just entered the spirit astral realm. Coupled with the fact that he had been cultivating a few new rank 5 and rank 6 cultivation methods, the spiritual energy in his body was not only pure, but also abnormally vigorous. He dared to say that even an expert who had just entered the gang's spirit realm would not dare to take the hundreds of sword qi of Sanju directly. From this, it could be seen that the statue was not only strange, but also very powerful. Ling Shiqi was about to attack again, but the evil energy suddenly shrank and condensed into the appearance of an old man in the air. It was similar to the remnant soul of the old man he had seen in Shi City. The evil old man spoke in human language. Where did these two rats come from? How dare they disturb Lord Evil God? As he spoke, the terrifying aura that was as heavy as a mountain assaulted them once again, causing the two of them to be unable to breathe. However, Ling Shiqi's expression did not change. He said indifferently, "What, you don't recognize me?" The evil old man stared at Ling Shiqi for a while. Suddenly, he hooked his finger, and two extremely fine gray mists were hooked out of Ling Shiqi's body. "How dare you kill my two remnant souls?" The evil old man suddenly flew into a rage. Ling Shiqi narrowed his eyes. It seemed that his body had indeed been tampered with the previous 2 times. However, judging from the old man's reaction, it seemed that he did not know what had happened to the other remnant souls. The evil old man said angrily, "I wanted to spare your lives and sacrifice you to Lord Evil God in the future. Now, give me your lives." As soon as he finished speaking, his hands made a strange gesture. At the same time, the huge statue behind him also moved. The 2 arms at the top of the statue also made the same gesture as the evil old man. Suddenly, waves of evil energy spread out like ripples. One could vaguely hear countless wails in their ears, making them feel as if they had fallen into an endless hell. When the statue began to move, Ling Shiqi began to retreat. When he saw the evil qi ripples, he felt a sense of familiarity. He had cultivated a spiritual skill related to evil energy before, which was the evil sky wailing curse. It was also because of this that he could activate the power in his finger bones. Now, he found that the evil energy ripples were similar to the evil sky wailing curse. Of course, the power of the two could not be compared. The moment the evil energy ripples appeared, they rippled over. Its speed was so fast that it could not be detected. Ling Shiqi activated the demonic beast blood rune armor again. He used the netherworld ghost steps to the limit and quickly retreated. At the same time, he clenched his fists and waves of holy light began to flash. However, Di Chuan did not have it easy. His speed was far slower than Ling Shiqi. Even though he had retreated in advance, he was still caught in the evil energy ripples. Suddenly, Di Chuan's body became extremely stiff. It wasn't because of the body lock curse, but because his ears and mind were filled with endless mournful cries. His mind was invaded in an instant, and he was on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, Ling Shiqi had already used the Great Light Fist. The holy light suddenly bloomed. Surprisingly, the light began to condense and formed a Buddhist lotus with a radius of 3 meters. In the past few days, Ling Shiqi had not stopped fusing the Great Light Fist and the Black Lotus Demon Fist. A few days was not long, but he had some gains. The Great Light Fist was a spiritual skill of the 6th level, but its range was too large. This caused the power to not be concentrated enough. Therefore, Ling Shiqi borrowed the technique of the Black Lotus Demon Fist and condensed the fist force of the Great Light Fist into the shape of a lotus. This way, not only was the power 30% stronger, but it was also more compatible with the Black Lotus Demon Fist. Buddhist techniques had always been the bane of all kinds of evil. Once the Buddhist lotus appeared, just by floating in the air, the evil energy ripples did not dare to invade at all. Ling Shiqi's mind stirred and the Buddhist lotus floated out. The holy power enveloped Di Chuan and helped him dispel the evil energy invasion. Di Chuan shuddered and looked at Ling Shiqi gratefully. The evil old man's face was ferocious, but his eyes were filled with fear. This holy power again, damn it. On the way here, Ling Shiqi had used the Great Light Fist. At that time, the evil old man had already noticed it. However, he did not expect Ling Shiqi to still have a trick up his sleeve. The evil Qi old man was extremely furious. If this Buddhist lotus exploded, he would probably be injured to the core. Rise! The evil old man roared. His entire body turned into boundless evil energy again and entered the statue. Rumble, the huge statue seemed to have a life of its own. Its 6 arms waved and its 4 legs stomped, causing the entire hill to shake. The statue's 6 arms suddenly raised at the same time. A shocking evil energy surged into the sky. Countless rocks fell crazily. When one looked up, a huge hole had been created in the mountain. Chapter 495. Wugu Mountain had always been deserted. The biggest reason was that this place was very evil. Almost everyone who passed by here disappeared. What was even more strange was that there were many spirit cultivators who did not believe in evil and went in to explore, but they never came out again. There was once a master of Gang's spirit realm who insisted on going in to find out the truth by virtue of his high cultivation, but he was also like a clay ox in the sea, never to be heard of again. Even the spirit astral realm master, who was enough to support a second-rate sect, died inside. Since then, Wugu Mountain had become a forbidden area. Fortunately, there were no cultivation resources here, and over time, no one cared about it. Di Chuan came from Ningyan County, so he naturally did not know about this. Ling Shiqi did not stay in Donglin County for long, and he had important things to do. Naturally, he did not have the heart to inquire about all kinds of ghost stories. But today, the desolate Wugu Mountain suddenly trembled. The surrounding towns were slightly affected. What was even more surprising was that an evil Qi suddenly appeared in the world. The movement could be seen clearly even dozens of miles away. Many of the spirit cultivators were immediately excited. This kind of scene was obviously the birth of a treasure. What a loud sound. What is that? Who cares what it is? Let's go and take a look. Maybe there is a treasure. Wugu Mountain has always been spread with all kinds of magical legends. Maybe a treasure really has appeared. The spirit cultivators in the surrounding towns all rushed to Wugu Mountain. The news spread like wildfire, and the more it spread, the more evil it became, attracting more and more spirit cultivators. Ling Shiqi and Di Chuan, who were in the center of Wugu Mountain, were not so excited. It was true that evil could not suppress good. Buddhist cultivation techniques were indeed very good at restraining evil, but when the evil qi was strong to a certain extent, this restraint was not so obvious at all. At this moment, Ling Shiqi and Di Chuan could only rely on the protection of the Buddhist lotus to barely protect themselves under the evil qi. Even the Buddhist lotus began to distort slightly. Ling Shiqi also felt that he had miscalculated. He originally thought that Di Chuan was forced to retreat when he first came in, which meant that the things inside were not very strong. But now it seemed that the other party was not weak, but did not use his full strength. It could also be said that he didn't want to use his full strength. The reason why the other party used all sorts of methods to lure the talented young spirit cultivator was to recover his strength. Now, it seemed like his power was shaking the heavens, but after this battle, the other party would definitely lose a large amount of origin qi. Of course, Ling Shiqi's priority now was to survive. Brother D, my great light fist won't be able to hold on for much longer. I'll share a portion of my light with you. You should hurry and escape, he said earnestly. Di Chuan's face was immediately filled with mixed feelings. If he followed the deepest thoughts in his heart, of course he would want to leave immediately. But the more Ling Shiqi said this, the more Di Chuan felt useless. Not only could he not help, but he also needed Ling Shiqi to help him. Brother Liu, I've dragged you down. There's no need for you to distract me. I can break out on my own. With that, he didn't care if Ling Shiqi agreed or not, and directly went out of the protection of the lotus. His entire body was covered with mystical seals of desolation, and his body had grown a little taller. Demonic qi surged around his body, and his aura was somewhat similar to that of an ancient demon lord. Boom! Di Chuan stomped on the ground and directly jumped out of a deep pit. Then, his body rushed out like a cannonball. In the midst of the evil aura, the huge statue stretched out its 6 arms. The evil aura suddenly stirred and evolved into 6 different demonic beasts. The 6 demonic beasts were more than 100 feet in size. 2 of them had wings on their backs. They directly soared into the air and chased after Di Chuan. Explode! Ling Shiqi waved his arms, and the lotus above his head shone brightly. Then, it exploded. The dazzling holy light shone out, and the light penetrated the evil aura between heaven and earth. The 2 demonic beasts that had just flown up were instantly purified and disappeared into nothingness. However, the remaining 4 demonic beasts had already closed in on Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi rolled his eyes and saw that Di Chuan had already run far away. He no longer hid his strength. With a thunderous explosion, purple light covered Ling Shiqi's feet. Then, a flash of lightning flashed through the evil aura, and his figure instantly jumped hundreds of feet. This was one of the spiritual skills that came with the purple lightning sound record that Juga Puha gave him, extreme purple lightning steps. This extreme purple lightning steps was a 5th rank spiritual skill. In terms of instantaneous speed, it was stronger than the ghostly spring steps. In fact, when Ling Shiqi first asked Di Chuan to leave, he didn't want to expose himself. After all, he had only obtained the cultivation technique for a few days. If he had cultivated a spiritual skill, it would have been fine, but the key was that Ling Shiqi had learned it all. He had also learned the spiritual skills that came with it directly to the Great Perfection stage. After standing up, Ling Shiqi's hands formed a seal. His body became a little shriveled, but his aura became stronger. Thick branches drilled out of the ground, crisscrossing, and a giant tree more than 20 feet tall appeared. This was the 6th rank spiritual skill that Qing Mulan gave him, the limitless deadwood spell. As the giant tree swayed, branches swung out like wild golden snakes, and wrapped the 4 evil beasts in. At this moment, the evil aura statue opened its mouth, and a sharp arrow that was about to take on a material form shot out. Ling Shiqi was fighting 1 against 4. It was already very good that he could deal with the evil beasts. How could he have the time to block the evil arrow? The evil statue's eyes flashed with a touch of pride. Its idea was right. Ling Shiqi was indeed unable to fight 4 enemies with 2 hands, but it didn't expect Ling Shiqi to have spiritual power. A blood mark in the shape of a magatama appeared on his forehead. The blood essence formed the demonic blood mark, which increased Ling Shiqi's cultivation, and a green skull ring appeared on his finger. The 7th rank artifact, the Divine Gu Ring. With the support of the demonic blood mark and the Divine Gu Ring, Ling Shiqi's spiritual power was stimulated to the extreme. A green brilliance suddenly appeared behind his head, which was a sign that his primordial spirit was operating at full power. Cold air rose around Ling Shiqi's body. What was different was that the cold air wasn't the normal icy blue color. Instead, it was a strange crimson color. Whoosh! The evil arrow tore through the sky. Before it even reached Ling Shiqi, its indestructible aura was enough to make people tremble in fear. However, what was surprising was that the evil arrow was covered in a layer of faint crimson ice crystals halfway, which caused the evil arrow to slow down. After a short while, the evil arrow that pierced through the sky was completely frozen. Ling Shiqi was able to block 4 evil beasts at the same time, and he was even able to block the evil arrow, which greatly shocked the evil old man. "You're quite capable, but so what? Let's see how long you can last." The evil old man was right. Ling Shiqi continuously used a 6th rank spiritual skill, which consumed a lot of energy. He definitely wouldn't be able to last long. However, he was willing to take the initiative to come here because he was prepared, and his biggest source of confidence was not himself. "Senior 9 leave, this guy is fierce. Please help." Chapter 496. A slightly excited voice suddenly sounded in Ling Shiqi's mind. "It's finally my turn." The owner of that voice was 9 Leave. That's right, 9 Leave had awakened. 9 Leave was ready to advance after Ling Shiqi came to Donglin County. Thus, she fell into a deep sleep. This time, she was going to advance from a rank 4 monster to a rank 5 monster. It was reasonable to say that it would take a long time. She herself said that it would take at least half a year and at most a year. The reason why 9 Leave woke up early was because Ling Shiqi directly let 9 Leave's main body swallow more than 20 pounds of soul stone. Soul stone was something that could nourish the soul, so it was the most suitable for 9 Leave. With the help of the soul stone, 9 Leave's advancement time was greatly shortened. She had already awakened on the 3rd day after Ling Shiqi left Donglin County. At that time, Ling Shiqi casually found an excuse to separate from Di Chuan for a while, concealing 9 Leave's aura. When 9 Leave woke up, she discovered that Ling Shiqi had condensed a primordial spirit. Even this rank 7 monster couldn't help but be surprised. Of course, she was not only surprised but also angry. That was, Ling Shiqi actually integrated the Heaven Monster's soul crystal into his primordial spirit. The Heaven Monster's soul crystal was 9 Leave's treasure. When Ling Shiqi accidentally put it into the spiritual illusion world, she was furious. Now that it was gone, she almost turned hostile on the spot. Fortunately, Ling Shiqi promised to give her a large number of soul stones, which barely appeased her anger and allowed her to come here with him. Therefore, 9 Leave was the real reason why Ling Shiqi dared to trouble the evil old man. Ling Shiqi released 9 Leave's main body. At this time, 9 Leave's body was already half the height of a person, but it wasn't huge. The lines on her body were very slender, full of dangerous aura, but also beautiful. Then, a green light flew out from Ling Shiqi's forehead and entered the monster body. 9 Leave's body immediately circulated with purple light. Before the statue could react, he turned into a purple stream of light and charged over. The evil old man hidden within the statue panicked. The moment 9 Leave appeared, he felt a sense of fear that came from the depths of his soul. This sort of throbbing was even more terrifying than Ling Shiqi's Buddhist lotus. He absolutely could not let her get close. The nefarious elder controlled the statue's 6 arms and formed a seal at the same time. A huge vertical eye strangely appeared above the statue's head. The vertical eye opened slightly, and then a wisp of gray flame drifted out. This flame looked very weak, as if a gust of wind could extinguish it. However, this seemingly weak flame emitted a terrifying aura that seemed capable of destroying the world. World-burning flames. 9-Leaf, who was flying in the air, cried out in surprise. Ling Shiqi, on the other hand, had a puzzled look on his face. Clearly, he had never heard of the world-burning fire. But judging from 9-Leaf's reaction, it must be something incredible. He also suddenly remembered that he still had the pure gold earth dragon flame in his system space. Perhaps the world-burning flames were also a kind of fire-type variant. Even if it's the world-burning flames, it can't do anything to me with just this wisp. 9-Leaf's figure turned sharply, and purple light burst out like meteors. Every purple light transformed into a 9-Leaf, and whether it was the aura or fluctuations of energy, they were exactly the same. What an exquisite illusion technique! Ling Shiqi could not help but be surprised. He also knew illusion techniques, but he only used illusions and movement techniques to create illusions. At most, he could create a few dozen illusions, and it was easy to tell the real from the fake. However, 9-Leaf could instantly create hundreds and thousands of illusions. What was even more terrifying was that even if Ling Shiqi opened his supercilious eyes, he could not tell the real from the fake. The evil old man also did not expect 9-Leaf to have such an exquisite illusion technique. He had used all his strength to summon a wisp of world-burning flames, and it was his strongest trump card. Back then, before he had recovered to his current level, he had relied on the world-burning flames to kill a spirit astral realm expert, which had shocked Zhou Fang and given him such a long time to recuperate. 9-Leaf was now a 5th-rank monster beast, which was similar to a spirit astral realm cultivator, so the evil old man thought that the world-burning flames were enough to kill 9-Leaf. But the problem was that he could not tell which one was the real 9-Leaf, and the world-burning flames that he had painstakingly summoned only had a wisp, which meant that he only had one chance to attack. If the attack landed on the illusory body, it would be equivalent to losing his most powerful technique. Thousands of 9-Leaf flew up and down around the statue. She was very smart and did not fight head-on. Instead, she kept attacking from the side with demonic aura to destroy the statue. In just a few breaths of time, the surface of the statue was already full of holes. The evil old man was very anxious. He could not control the world-burning flames for a long time. If he delayed any longer, he would be the first to be devoured. The evil old man steeled his heart and did a shocking thing. He actually swallowed the world-destroying flames into the statue's mouth. Was he trying to commit suicide? Not good, he's going to self-destruct. 9-Leaf immediately warned. She had discovered it in time, and the warning was also very timely, but the evil old man was even faster. Just as 9-Leaf's voice fell, the entire statue was ignited with a layer of world-burning flames. There was no huge fluctuation, but everything within a radius of 1,000 feet was instantly evaporated. Even the ground was forcefully sunk several feet deep. From afar, it looked like a meteorite had smashed into this place. All of 9-Leaf's illusions disappeared without a trace. Fortunately, her speed was extremely fast, and her main body had already fled far away. As for Ling Shiqi, his reaction was a beat slower than 9-Leaf's. He hurriedly used the power of lightning in the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Silver lightning flashed around his body as he used the purple extreme lightning steps. Every step he took allowed him to move more than 1,000 feet away. A pair of gorgeous 5-colored wings extended from his back. He did not fly into the sky. Instead, he spread his wings, greatly increasing his speed of retreat. Even so, he was still slightly affected by the world-burning flames. But it was this tiny bit that caused the Goo King's armor to distort and fall off. The Goo King was also on the verge of death. The demonic beast blood rune armor inside was even more unbearable. It was burned beyond recognition. Ling Shiqi was not in a hurry to be shocked. He hurriedly activated his protective spirit armor, but it was as weak as paper. In the end, only a trace of world-burning flames, so weak that it was almost undetectable, touched Ling Shiqi's body. He immediately felt as if his entire body had been thrown into deep magma. His body was suffering endless torment from inside out. Dry cracks appeared all over his body. Fortunately, Ling Shiqi's body was strong enough to withstand it. At this moment, Ling Shiqi was shocked to realize how terrifying the world-burning flames were. Just a wisp of flames had such destructive power. He had only been slightly affected, but he had almost lost his life. Ling Shiqi continued to retreat rapidly. He turned to look and found that the statue had also turned into ashes. But at this moment, a gray stream of light suddenly flew out of the ashes and fled towards the horizon. The evil old man was not dead. He wanted to escape. But before the gray stream of light could fly far, it crashed into a purple light curtain. Ah! Accompanied by a blood-curdling scream, the gray light dissipated, revealing a miniature statue. To be more precise, this was the true body of the evil old man. Its appearance was almost the same as the statue, but the size was different. It was only one size bigger than 9 Leave. At this moment, the evil being looked around with a terrified expression and found that a cage made of purple light had been set up here. You want to fool my eyes with this little trick? 9 Leave appeared with a contemptuous smile. Do you think I was giving you a scraping treatment just now? My many illusions have already secretly set up a backup plan. I was just waiting for you to walk into the trap. The evil being no longer looked like a god. It waved its 6 arms and begged, spare me, I have many ancient secret techniques that I can give you. 9 Leave shook her head and said, not interested, I'm only interested in your soul. With that, 9 Leave ignored the evil being's terrified and wailing expression. She opened her mouth and spat out a green light, extracting the evil old man's soul from the evil being. Chapter 497. Burp. After swallowing the evil old man's soul, 9 Leave burped in satisfaction. Then, he said to Ling Shiqi, don't run away. I'll keep the body of this thing for you. Consider it your reward for giving me the soul stone. Ling Shiqi came to the evil creature's corpse. The corpse wasn't small. What was strange was that it had clearly died not long ago, but there were many signs of decay on its body. There were even some places where white bones could be seen. It looked like it had been dead for a long time. This thing should be some kind of magical ancient creature that has been dead for many years. In fact, the old man's soul wasn't the original owner of this body. He was just a turtle dove that took over the magpie's nest, 9 Leave explained. I see. Ling Shiqi nodded in surprise. Now he understood. The finger bone he obtained at the beginning had erupted with extremely strong power. It was reasonable to say that the body of this thing should be extremely strong. However, Ling Shiqi was still able to fight with him a few times. At that time, he had a trace of doubt in his heart. It seemed that the evil old man had also taken over someone else's corpse. He couldn't use the true power of this body at all. From this, it seemed that this corpse was really an incredible treasure. 9 Leave really gave it to him just like that. Ling Shiqi secretly glanced at 9 Leave, but 9 Leave caught him on the spot. She said with a somewhat arrogant tone, I can't eat something that has been dead for who knows how many years. It's disgusting. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi didn't know what to say. When 9 Leave devoured other people's souls, she didn't seem to dislike anything. Then, Ling Shiqi habitually rummaged through the corpse. He really found a gray diamond-shaped crystal that was half the size of a palm from the corpse's brain. Ling Shiqi felt an indescribable aura from this crystal. This thing was clearly dead, but there was a trace of life on it. Ling Shiqi was shocked. Could it be that this evil creature wasn't completely dead? When Nine Leaves saw Ling Shiqi's shocked expression, he said contemptuously, "Don't worry, it's already dead. This is just a remnant of its aura. This thing looks a bit like a Yao core, but its nature is completely different. I really don't know what kind of monster it is." Ling Shiqi coughed dryly and silently stored the evil creature's corpse into the system space. He planned to study it slowly in the future. At this moment, he suddenly thought of a question and asked, "Senior, what was the apocalyptic fire that the evil creature used at the end? Why is it so terrifying?" At this moment, he still had lingering fears about the power of the world-extinguishing flames. That kind of flame that could evaporate everything without any warning was really too terrifying. When it came to the world-extinguishing fire, Nine Leaf also showed a rare solemn expression. The world-extinguishing fire is a kind of fire attribute variant that was born between heaven and earth. It is extremely rare. This kind of flame has the characteristic of destroying everything. It is abnormally tyrannical. A few hundred years ago, a spirit cultivator who could control the world-extinguishing fire appeared in the demonic Miasma mountain range. That person single-handedly killed several 7th-level great demons. Since then, the demonic Miasma mountain range has been unable to recover and gradually became the backyard of the various dynasties and spirit cultivator sects. At that time, I seemed to be only a 3rd-level demonic beast. I hid far away in the corner of the mountain range and could only tremble. That kind of power that seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth is still unforgettable. That's right, speaking of which, there is a fire attribute variant in the Extreme Fire Mountain Village. Back then, my cultivation had not recovered enough and was unable to obtain it. Why don't I go and get it now? As he spoke, Nine Leaves' expression kept changing. When he mentioned the Extreme Fire Mountain Village, Nine Leaves seemed to be a little excited. Ling Shiqi laughed dryly and said, "Senior Nine Leaf might not know, but the Extreme Fire Mountain Village has already been destroyed." Destroyed? Nine Leaf immediately shouted, "It's over." That heaven and earth variant still fell into someone else's hands. If I knew earlier, I would have gone to get the treasure first and then hibernated. Ling Shiqi looked at Nine Leaves' vexed expression and secretly laughed in his heart. "Do you know who destroyed the Extreme Fire Mountain Village? As long as it's not a Unity of Heaven expert like Wu Xiang, I can get it back." Nine Leaves' 2 demonic eyes became extremely ferocious. The heaven and earth variant was too precious. Even this 7th-level great demonic beast coveted it. This. I won't hide it from Senior. The Extreme Fire Mountain Village was destroyed by me, and that heaven and earth variant has already been obtained by me. Just now, Ling Shiqi was actually hesitating whether to say that he had obtained the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame. In the end, he said it. Because he had signed an equal blood contract with Nine Leaf, they would probably be together for a long time. It was almost impossible to hide it from Nine Leaf, who could see through people's hearts. Moreover, Nine Leaf was very knowledgeable. She might know the method to refine the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame. As for whether Nine Leaf would snatch the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame from him, he was not worried. This Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame and Nine Leaf were natural enemies. Even if Ling Shiqi gave it to Nine Leaf, she would not dare to accept it. What? Nine Leaf looked as if someone had stepped on his tail. He scurried in front of Ling Shiqi and stared at him with a pair of bewitching eyes. In these 2 months, not only did you condense a primordial spirit, but you also annihilated a dignified second-rate sect and even obtained a legendary heaven and earth variant. Clearly, Nine Leaf didn't believe it. Otherwise, this experience would be too shocking. Ling Shiqi helplessly shook his head and said, Senior 9 Leave, the reason I returned to Donglin County was to join the Elite Association. The Elite Association's mission was to destroy the Extreme Fire Mountain Village. I had to borrow the help of many Spirit Aperture Realm experts to barely destroy the Extreme Fire Mountain Village. I inadvertently learned that the Extreme Fire Mountain Village was secretly hiding a Heaven and Earth variant called the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame. He could only use the shortest words to quickly explain his experience. When 9 Leave heard the words, Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame, her eyes flashed with confusion. Really? What are the characteristics of the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame? Junior does not dare to lie to Senior, the Crimson Gold. At this time, Ling Shiqi had not finished speaking when he sensed the aura of a spirit cultivator in his vision. He hurriedly said, "Not good, someone is coming. Let's leave this place first. We'll talk as we walk. Let's go." Then, one person and one head turned into two phantoms and quickly left. After they left, a person wearing a blood-red robe and a golden mask was the first to arrive. If Ling Shiqi was still present, he would definitely recognize that this person was the pavilion leader of the Blood Robe Pavilion's Donglin County branch, Feng Sha Mo. Feng Sha Mo looked around and felt the flame aura that had not completely dissipated. It was mixed with evil qi, demonic qi, and waves of spirit qi. He also keenly sensed a trace of familiar spirit qi. His eyes were full of doubt and seriousness. When did such a powerful thing appear near the Shadow Wind Ridge? What happened here just now? Then, figures came one after another. These were the spirit cultivators who came after hearing the news. However, they did not see any treasures, only a devastated land. Chapter 498. The spirit cultivators who came here were stunned when they saw the barren ground. Actually, they also felt a terrifying flame aura on the way here, but because it was far away, they thought that a fire-type treasure had appeared. But now, it didn't seem like the birth of a treasure, but more like the birth of a monster. Especially the few Spirit Aperture Realm experts, their faces were gloomy because they knew that if they were to face this kind of flame, they would definitely die. What is this Wugu mountain hiding? Why do I feel so many different auras in the air? A spirit cultivator's face was full of doubt. Yeah, it's too strange. Look at the ground, it doesn't seem like it was created by some kind of spirit technique, but it suddenly disappeared. What kind of cultivation base is needed to be able to do this? I'm afraid it's only a great expert at the Unity of Heaven realm. Everyone's imagination ran wild, but no one could say anything. At this time, Ling Shiqi and 9 Leave had already run dozens of miles away. Along the way, Ling Shiqi also told 9 Leave about the characteristics of the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame. After 9 Leave found out, she was immediately unhappy. The Heaven and Earth variant that she had been thinking about for a long time was actually able to restrain her existence, which made it hard for her to accept. She even muttered, "Brat, you're really lucky. You even dared to forcefully take the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame. You're lucky that it didn't burn you to death. This thing is yours." "Senior, then do you know the method to refine the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame?" Ling Shiqi asked. 9 Leave thought for a moment and said, "I've never seen the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame before, so of course I don't know the method to refine it. But I guess it's best to use ice-type materials. Formations, pills, and environments have to be prepared." Speaking of which, the demonic Miasma mountain range once had an ice-type Heaven and Earth variant called Zero-Bound Ice. Later on, it was taken away by a spirit cultivator. If you can find someone who can refine Zero-Bound Ice to help you, it will be much easier. Zero Freeze Ice. Ling Shiqi muttered these 4 words. Heaven and Earth variants were extremely rare, and the Demon Miasma mountain range was a place that connected the Thunderblaze Imperial Dynasty and the Falling Star Imperial Dynasty at the same time. However, 9 Leave had indeed provided him with an idea. This time, when he returned to the Blood Garment Pavilion, he could also prepare some ice-type materials. At the same time, he could also borrow the Blood Garment Pavilion's vast intelligence network to investigate people who possessed ice-type variants. After that, the man and the demon rushed to the Bloodcloak Pavilion's main pavilion in Mukon County at full speed. Ling Shiqi immediately used his fate skill. Since he had condensed a primordial spirit, his mental strength had skyrocketed, and the teleportation distance of fate had reached an exaggerated range of 1,000 miles. Coupled with his constant traveling, it only took him 5 days to reach the vicinity of the Blood Garment Pavilion. At this moment, Ling Shiqi stopped and looked at Nine Leaf, who was still following him. "What are you looking at?" Nine Leaf glared at him. "Cough." Ling Shiqi said helplessly, "Senior Nine Leaf, I'm about to enter the Blood Garment Pavilion. Not to mention the Sky Origin Realm experts, there are also many Unity of Heaven Realm experts. I'm afraid you'll be discovered." "You mean to say that I'm in the way?" Nine Leaf's tone became a little gloomy. Ling Shiqi immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Although Nine Leaf was only a rank 5 monster, her true strength was so great that even an ordinary Unity of Heaven Realm expert was not her opponent. Junior definitely did not mean that. "I'm just worried about Senior's safety." "Humph." Nine Leaf snorted. Immediately, a purple light flashed around her body, and then a graceful figure appeared. It was a seductive woman with a beauty that could topple cities. Her every movement was filled with a charming aura. Her light purple eyes and the purple lines at the corners of her eyes added a sense of mystery to her. She was not wearing a robe, but a purple and black light armor. The style of the light armor was somewhat similar to her original body. The key was that the light armor did not cover her whole body. Her limbs and waist were exposed, which made Ling Shiqi a little dizzy. He secretly mobilized his spiritual power and pulled his mind back. He said in surprise, "Senior, you can already transform." Nine Leaf gently twisted her waist and gradually approached. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "You can say that. But I can't completely transform into a human form. I still have some characteristics of my original body, so I transformed it into armor." "How is it?" "Not bad, right?" Smelling the fragrance coming toward him, Ling Shiqi's heart inevitably beat faster. He laughed dryly and changed the topic. "Yes, but Senior, why did you suddenly transform into a human form?" "Of course it's to follow you to the Blood Garment Pavilion." Nine Leaf said matter-of-factly, "I've been interested in this famous assassin force for a long time." Ling Shiqi couldn't help but facepalm. "Senior Nine Leaf, this is not very convenient." "What's not convenient about it?" "With your ability and identity, can't you bring someone in?" Nine Leaf patted Ling Shiqi's shoulder. "Don't worry, my cultivation has recovered quite well. As long as those Heaven Origin Realm cultivators don't appear, no one will be able to see my true body." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi secretly let out a sigh of relief. However, it was indeed not appropriate for him to bring a beauty like Nine Leaf in. Thus, he took out a set of black robes and a black mask, and said, "Senior, the Blood Garment Pavilion has its own rules, and all disciples have to wear masks. I only have a black mask here. Senior, please feel wronged and disguise yourself as a black-robed assassin." Nine Leaf shrugged indifferently. As long as she could enter the Blood Garment Pavilion, she didn't care about anything else. Nine Leaf put on the black robe and mask. Even her cultivation was suppressed to the spirit transformation realm. In the blink of an eye, she had become a very ordinary black-robed assassin. However, Ling Shiqi was still a bit worried because Nine Leaf's ability to cause trouble was too strong. If she was allowed to wander around the Blood Garment Pavilion, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause? That was why Ling Shiqi planned to bring Nine Leaf to the Formless Palace and quickly finish a few things before leaving. Then, he put on his blood-red robe and mask and walked into the Blood Cloak Pavilion. The Blood Garment Pavilion had always been heavily guarded. After checking Leng Shiqi's token, the guard insisted on checking Nine Leaves' identity token. Leng Shiqi took out his silver-patterned blood kill token and used his authority to forcibly bring Nine Leaf in. After entering the Blood Garment Pavilion, Nine Leaf immediately began to look around. She was slightly dissatisfied and said, "The Blood Garment Pavilion doesn't have a dark and bloody feeling. It's really lacking." The corner of Leng Shiqi's eyes under the mask twitched. He didn't answer and directly brought Nine Leaf to the Formless Palace. Chapter 499. Leng Shiqi stood in front of the Formless Palace that he hadn't seen in a long time. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. Ever since he left Blood Mist Island, he had only come to Formless Palace 3 or 4 times. There was a time when he almost forgot that he was a disciple of Blood Cloth Pavilion. The 2 assassins at the entrance of Formless Palace didn't recognize Leng Shiqi, but they recognized his mask and silver-patterned blood robe. They immediately knelt down and said, "Greetings, Master Leng." "Is Master here?" Leng Shiqi asked. "Master isn't in the palace." "Not here." Leng Shiqi frowned. "Do you know where Master went?" The 2 shook their heads. Leng Shiqi felt that this was a bit troublesome. Formless was his direct superior in Project Blood Seed. If Formless wasn't here, who should he go find? The only ones who knew were probably the 5 Sky Origin Realm cultivators of Blood Cloth Pavilion. Then the one he should go find the most should be Pavilion Master Hateful Blade. But from what he knew, Hateful Blade was a cultivation maniac. It was very likely that he was in seclusion. He asked again, "Is the Pavilion Master in seclusion?" The Pavilion Master is indeed in seclusion. Right now, the Vice Pavilion Master is in charge of the sect. Understood. Leng Shiqi then brought Nine Leaf into Formless Palace. He was going to let her stay here for a while, but they didn't walk for long before they ran into a woman. It was Leng Shiqi's senior sister, Sulwan. He remembered that Sulwan was the one who had brought him into the sect, but the 2 hadn't seen each other since then. After a few years, Sulwan's cultivation had reached the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. Her cultivation speed was astonishing. Or rather, as Formless disciple, this was how it should be. Sulwan also didn't expect to meet Leng Shiqi. She had almost forgotten that she had this junior brother. "Senior sister Sulwan, long time no see." Leng Shiqi greeted her symbolically. But Sulwan's gaze was fixed on Nine Leaf behind Leng Shiqi. Even though Nine Leaf was wearing a black robe, it was obvious that she was a woman. "Who is she?" "Unrelated people are not allowed to enter Non-Phase Palace as they please," said Sulwan coldly. Leng Shiqi's heart suddenly quivered. Who dared to speak to Nine Leaf like this? He was truly afraid that Nine Leaf would slap Sulwan to death. He secretly glanced at Nine Leaf behind and discovered that Nine Leaf was unmoved, as though he had not heard anything. Leng Shiqi hurriedly said, "My subordinate, he's an errand runner." Sulwan didn't pursue the matter. Instead, she changed the topic. "Your cultivation speed is quite fast. As expected of someone chosen by Master." When they first met, Leng Shiqi was only at the middle stage of the spirit transformation realm. The gap between him and Sulwan was simply too great. At this moment, there was only a difference of 1 or 2 small realms between them. It could be seen that Leng Shiqi was indeed catching up. However, Leng Shiqi didn't detect any jealousy or fear in Sulwan's voice. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior sister overpraises me. If you're looking for Master, then you've come at the wrong time. He went to the Western Wasteland province a while ago and hasn't returned." He still hasn't returned. Leng Shiqi thought to himself. He knew that Non-Phase had gone to the Western Wasteland province to send a group of assassins, but it had already been several months. He should have returned a long time ago. However, Ling Shiqi couldn't guess the thoughts of an existence at non-phase level, so he didn't think too much about it. Thank you for telling me, senior sister. Sulwan waved her hand indifferently and left. Ling Shiqi rubbed his chin. This senior sister Sulwan was still so straightforward. Afterwards, he and Nine Leave arrived at his small courtyard. Someone had been taking care of this place for a long time, but the person in charge had changed again. Ling Shiqi settled Nine Leave down here and prepared to go find the Vice Pavilion Master. Before leaving, he earnestly said, Senior Nine Leave, I'll go see the Vice Pavilion Master, Black Frost Ghost. He's a heaven origin expert. Perhaps he'll be able to sense Senior's existence dash, but before he could finish speaking, Nine Leave interrupted him. I know. You're just worried that I'll run off. I won't cause any trouble for you. Ling Shiqi was silent for a moment before turning to leave. However, he was still a bit worried, so he used the Netherworld Ghost Steps to walk toward the Bloodkill Hall. At the entrance of the Bloodkill Hall, Ling Shiqi handed over the silver-marked Bloodkill token and explained his reason for coming. Not long after, he was led into the Bloodkill Hall. The Bloodkill Hall was very spacious. Ling Shiqi could clearly hear his own footsteps as he walked inside. He looked at the throne at the very back, but there was no one there. Tap, tap, at this moment, 2 sets of footsteps rang out. Ling Shiqi turned to look and saw 2 familiar faces. One of them was Hengming. The last time they had met was during the gambling match with the 6 Unity Spirit region. Hengming's cultivation base was now at the Spirit Aperture realm. However, his spirit energy aura was still not very stable. It seemed he had only broken through a few days ago. In truth, Hengming's cultivation talent was a bit inferior to Delta Origi and Yushu's. For him to be able to reach the Spirit Aperture realm right after Delta Origi, he had probably suffered quite a bit. Hengming had always been a man of few words. If he could speak less, he definitely wouldn't speak more. When he saw Ling Shiqi, he only nodded in greeting. Ling Shiqi also responded. Since Hengming had already broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm, he should be participating in the Blood Seed project. He just didn't know which faction the Blood Garment Pavilion would place him in. As for the other person, it was out of Ling Shiqi's expectations. That person was Bing Shang. Ling Shiqi hadn't seen Bing Shang since the collapse of the illusory spirit secret realm. What had he experienced after that? Why was he at the Bloodkill Hall now? Bing Shang's temper wasn't much better than Hengming's. He simply said, looks like there's no need for our battle. Bing Shang's cultivation base was still at the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. His cultivation speed was quite fast, but compared to Ling Shiqi, there was still a big difference. It could be said that there was no need for them to compete. Senior brother's control of cold chi is inferior to mine. If there's time, I'd like to ask senior brother for advice. Ling Shiqi also said politely. Bing Shang shook his head and said, I don't dare to be called senior brother. Just call me junior brother. In the Falling Star continent, strength was respected. This concept was deeply ingrained in every spirit cultivator's heart. In the past, Bing Shang's cultivation base was higher than Ling Shiqi's, so it was natural for him to call him senior brother. But now that their cultivation bases were reversed, they had to change the way they addressed each other. Hengming said, this is my junior brother. Ling Shiqi immediately felt that something was wrong. He and Bing Shang were both disciples of the Blood Garment Pavilion. They called each other senior brother, but they didn't have the same master's disciple. But from Hengming's words, it seemed that Bing Shang really was Hengming's junior brother. That meant Bing Shang had already been taken in by Ink Frost Ghost Man. That's right. Bing Shang is a disciple that our pavilion recently accepted. At this moment, a frosty voice suddenly rang out. Ling Shiqi looked up. At some unknown time, a person had appeared on the main seat of the Bloodkill Hall. It was the Vice Pavilion Master of the Blood Garment Pavilion, Inkfrost Ghostman. Chapter 500. Greetings, Vice Pavilion Master. Greetings, Master. Ling Shiqi and the other two bowed at the same time. The three of you are all outstanding disciples of the Blood Garment Pavilion, and you know each other. I'll let you see. Inkfrost then turned to Bing Shang and Hengming. The two of you have also seen Ling Shiqi's cultivation base. You should know the difference between you and him. You have to work harder in the future. We will follow Master's teachings. You can leave for now. Disciple will take his leave. The two of them left the Bloodkill Hall together. Inkfrost examined Ling Shiqi and said, I heard you went to participate in Donglin County's elite meeting. It seems it's already over. The elite meeting was a grand meeting of the Thunderflame dynasty. It was extremely secretive, and most people had never heard of it. Even the Blood Garment Pavilion's intelligence network hadn't been able to infiltrate it, so Inkfrost didn't know what the result was. Ling Shiqi cupped his fists and said, Disciple has not failed his mission and obtained the champion of the elite meeting. An exception has been made for me to enter the Dark Lightning Guard's headquarters. Delta Origi has also entered the Discipline Department's headquarters. Swish. The Inkfrost Ghostman immediately stood up, his eyes revealing an undisguised look of surprise. Is that so? Disciple wouldn't dare lie to Vice Pavilion Master. Good, very good. Inkfrost arrived in front of Ling Shiqi and placed his hands on his shoulders. As expected of Blood Mist Island's strongest disciple. We really didn't misjudge you. Tell me what reward you want. As long as it's within my authority, I'll definitely satisfy it. Ling Shiqi had come for the Blood Garment Pavilion's reward. He was delighted when he heard the Inkfrost Ghoul's firm reply. Furthermore, Inkfrost had been in charge of the Blood Garment Pavilion for many years. What authority did he have? It could be said that as long as the Blood Garment Pavilion could take out something, he would agree. Then Disciple won't be courteous. Go ahead. The Inkfrost ghostly man was very generous. First of all, Disciple will more or less face some troubles after going to the Imperial capital. Moreover, it will be very difficult to contact the sect in time in the Imperial capital, so Disciple needs some help. Ling Shiqi explained his difficulties. Mo Shuang ghostly man waved his hand without any hesitation. Of course. Don't worry about this. I'll make the necessary arrangements. Ling Shiqi continued, Vice Pavilion Master, as you know, this disciple has practiced a body refining cultivation method, but that cultivation method is of a lower level and is no longer suitable for me. I hope that Vice Pavilion Master can give me a higher level body refining cultivation method. The body refining cultivation method that he practiced was the incomplete 9 Nether Mageweth diagram that he obtained from the demon spirit in Boiwanhu's tomb a long time ago. He had reached the end of the 9 Nether Mageweth diagram after he came to the Western Wilderness Prefecture. However, high-level body refining techniques were too precious. Ling Shiqi had been running around and didn't have time to search for them. This caused his body's strength to increase very slowly. Compared to his cultivation, it felt like it was dragging him down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he naturally wanted to get a high-level body refining technique. He believed that with the Blood Garment Pavilion's foundation, they would definitely have it. High-level body refining techniques. I remember that the Blood Book Palace has more than one. Take this token. You can go and pick one later. Mo Shuang ghostly man took out a token and handed it to Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi looked at Mo Shuang ghostly man's indifference. It seemed that the Blood Garment Pavilion didn't lack high-level body refining techniques at all. He regretted that he didn't ask for a few more. Unfortunately, since he had already said it, he couldn't go back on his words. He could only swallow his loss. He said, "Lastly, disciple wants some ice array formations, materials, and the like." "Oh. You want to cultivate cold chi? If so, I can help you." Mo Shuang ghostly man was best at two aspects. One was ghosts, and the other was cold chi. Ling Shichi shook his head and said, "No, disciple plans to use ice attribute materials to refine a fire attribute variant." A fire attribute variant. Mo Shuang ghostly man's voice suddenly rose a few notches. "You have a fire attribute variant?" "That's right. Disciple obtained the pure gold earth dragon flame by chance some time ago, but I couldn't refine it. If the sect has a way to refine a fire attribute variant, it would be great." Ling Shichi didn't hide anything. If he wanted to use the Blood Garment Pavilion's resources to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame, he couldn't hide it. At this moment, Mo Shuang ghostly man looked at Ling Shichi with a strange expression and said, "You came at the right time." Hearing this, Ling Shichi knew that there was a chance. Mo Shuang ghostly man said with a smile, "There is someone in the sect who has refined a fire attribute variant. That person has an ice attribute variant." There was someone in the sect with a fire attribute variant. And it just so happened to be an ice attribute variant. Ling Shichi thought that he had misheard. If there was someone who could refine a fire attribute variant, then they must know the method to refine it. And that person just so happened to be an ice attribute variant. He could help Ling Shichi suppress the pure gold earth dragon flame. This person was more important than a large pile of ice attribute materials. This was like someone giving him a pillow when he was about to doze off. Ling Shichi felt that returning to the main pavilion this time was really worth it. He quickly asked, "Vice Pavilion Master, may I ask who that person is?" Mo Shuang ghostly man said with a strange smile, "You just met. He hasn't gone far yet." "Just met." Ling Shichi immediately thought of Bing Shang and Meng Ming. He immediately determined that the one with the ice attribute variant was definitely Bing Shang. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that he had seen Bing Shang use a special pure white cold chi in the illusion spirit's secret realm. However, he never thought that it was a fire attribute variant. Because he also cultivated cold chi, he knew that there were many variations of cold chi. For example, his triple extinction sword chi was a variation of cold chi. Eunuch Gao's cold underworld chi and Shi Feiying's crimson ice crystals were the same. Therefore, he never thought that Bing Shang would have an ice attribute variant. With this, Ling Shichi finally understood why Bing Shang became Mo Shuang ghostly man's disciple. A person who could refine a fire attribute variant was definitely worth nurturing. Mo Shuang ghostly man was the most suitable person to teach him in the blood clothing pavilion. Mo Shuang ghostly man continued, "I've already sent a message to Bing Shang. He'll help you refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. As for any materials and resources you need, you can use them as you wish." Not long after, Bing Shang returned. Mo Shuang ghostly man must have told him the whole story, so he didn't ask and directly said, "Senior brother Lang, I will do my best to help you refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. My zero-bound ice has the characteristics of extreme cold. It's very suitable for suppressing all kinds of flames." But his words caused Ling Shichi's heart to tremble. The variant ice death possessed was the zero-bound ice that Nine Leaf had mentioned not long ago. Chapter 501. While Ling Shichi was shocked, he also thought about it. Nine Leaf had said that the zero-bound ice was originally in the demonic Miasma mountain range, but it was taken away by a spirit cultivator. But that spirit cultivator was definitely not Bing Shang, because the age did not match. Then what was the relationship between Bing Shang and that person? It seemed that Bing Shang was still hiding some secrets. Of course, everyone had their own secrets, and Ling Shichi did not want to look into it. As long as Bing Shang could help him refine the scarlet gold earth dragon flame, it was fine. Bing Shang, I'll leave the matter of refining the scarlet gold earth dragon flame to you. Once it's done, Master will reward you greatly. Ink Frost Ghost Man said. Bing Shang was secretly shocked. He did not understand what Ling Shiqi had just done or said to make Ink Frost Ghost Man, a famous expert, value him so highly. Disciple will do his best. You can leave. Ink Frost Ghost Man waved his hand and then secretly transmitted to Ling Shiqi, I'll help you choose a few elite disciples. In this period of time, you can focus on refining the scarlet gold earth dragon flame. Ling Shiqi and Bing Shang cupped their fists and said, Disciple will leave. After leaving the Blood Kill Hall, Bing Shang gave Ling Shiqi a jade strip and said, Senior Brother Ling, this records my experience of refining the zero-bound ice. Different types of heaven and earth variants use different methods, but the general idea is the same. Senior Brother Ling can study it first. Ling Shiqi took the jade strip and said, It's better if you don't call me Senior Brother, it sounds awkward. Why don't we call each other as equals? This jade strip is incomparably precious, and I can't take it for free. Take this bottle of pills. As he said that, Ling Shiqi took out a small green bottle with 3 awakening pills inside. To normal spirit pulse realm cultivators, the awakening pill was an extremely precious treasure. It was the key to breaking through the spirit aperture realm, and also a great help in opening the spirit aperture realm. Bing Shang naturally wanted it as well. Although he was Ink Frost Ghost Man's disciple, the Blood Robe Pavilion's rules did not give their disciples too many resources. If you want resources, you can exchange them with blood droplets. This was the principle of the Blood Robe Pavilion that could not be changed. As a master, he could teach you a unique cultivation method, but he would not give you many cultivation resources. At most, he would help you prepare some tasks that were more cost-effective. Therefore, Bing Shang didn't have many awakening pills on him. He was already at the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, so he should be preparing to break through to the Spirit Aperture realm. Ling Shiqi's actions were exactly what Bing Shang wanted. Bing Shang didn't refuse. He cupped his hands and accepted the awakening pill. Brother Ling, refining the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame still requires a lot of preparation. Even though Master has said that we can take any materials we want, it will still take around 10 days to set everything up. I remember that Brother Ling also cultivates cold chi. You can take advantage of this time to cultivate cold chi protective spiritual techniques, which will increase your chances of success. That's exactly what I was thinking. Ling Shiqi and Shi Feiying's Crimson Ice Crystal formula had not been fully comprehended, so there was still room for improvement. Alright, then I'll start preparing. When everything is done, I'll go to the Formless Palace to look for you. Sorry to trouble you, Brother Bing. Goodbye. After the two parted ways, Ling Shiqi didn't return to the Formless Palace. Instead, he went to the Blood Book Hall to choose a body refining technique. After arriving at the Blood Book Hall, Ling Shiqi skillfully passed through the restrictions. Under the guidance of the disciple who was in charge of this place, he arrived at the 5th floor of the Blood Book Hall. This was the place where rank 6 cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques were stored. The 5th floor was much smaller than the floor below. It was about the same size as his courtyard. There were 20 to 30 bookshelves with jade slips on them. Ling Shiqi looked around and went directly to the rank 6 cultivation techniques section. There were only 9 bookshelves here. At a glance, there were around 400 to 500 jade slips. This meant that there were around 400 to 500 rank 6 cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques in the Blood Book Hall. Outside, rank 5 cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques were precious resources that couldn't be bought with money, let alone rank 6 cultivation techniques. Among the geniuses who participated in the elite meeting, only a handful had rank 6 spiritual techniques. This showed how precious rank 6 cultivation techniques were. And in front of Ling Shiqi, there were hundreds of them. This was simply shocking. This didn't include the Netherworld Blood Cloak assassins and the few Sky Origin stage cultivators. From this, it could be seen that the Blood Robe Pavilion was a top sect. It was simply not something an ordinary cultivator could imagine. Ling Shiqi casually picked up a jade slip. It was a rank 6 cultivation technique, butterfly dance colorful poison technique. It was a poison technique that was cultivated by a woman. Of course, the jade slip only had a brief introduction of the cultivation technique in 1 or 2 sentences. It was not the real thing. This also dispelled Ling Shiqi's hope. Soon after, he started to pick out a body refinement cultivation method from the numerous cultivation methods. It had to be said that body refinement cultivation methods were really rare. After less than an hour, Ling Shiqi had looked through all the cultivation methods and only found 4 6th-level body refinement cultivation methods. They were Ice Skin Jade Bone Book, Vidra 100 Battle Pictures, 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art, and Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body. Ling Shiqi first put down Ice Skin Jade Bone Book. This was also a body tempering technique created for a woman. He couldn't help but want to ridicule it. Which woman would choose the path of body tempering technique? This cultivation technique was purely of little value. It was a rank 6 cultivation technique in vain. The remaining 3 cultivation techniques each had their own characteristics. The Vidra 100 Battle Portraits, as its name implied, was a body refinement cultivation technique that leaned heavily on defense. After mastering it, one would be able to cultivate an indestructible Vidra body, and it would be difficult for 100 weapons to injure the body in the slightest. 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art was a body tempering technique that required the assistance of some special flames. After mastering it, not only could one control the flames at will, but one could also ignore many fire spirit skills. As for Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body, it had been passed down for a long time. It was a cultivation technique created by an eccentric person who imitated the Ancient Beast Divine Body. When cultivated to the extreme, one could become a Wild Beast Divine Body with unparalleled power. However, this cultivation method required one to fuse with powerful beasts in order to continue cultivating. It was somewhat similar to the demonic beast art that Ling Shiqi had cultivated in the past. Ling Shiqi's eyes flashed with a bit of hesitation. After a little hesitation, he first eliminated Vidra 100 Battle Pictures. His fighting style had always been relatively aggressive. He was good at using offense as defense, so this cultivation technique was a bit inconsistent with his style. The key was to make a choice between 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art and Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body. The advantages and disadvantages of 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art were very obvious. What Ling Shiqi considered was that when he refined the Red Gold Earth Dragon Flame, with the support of the Heavenly Flame, the power of this cultivation technique would definitely increase by several times. However, Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body was more compatible with his own cultivation technique. Especially his demonic beast blood pattern armor was destroyed by the world-burning fire not long ago. It was just right for him to switch to this cultivation technique. For a time, Ling Shiqi was a bit of a dilemma. Chapter 502. Ling Shiqi began to carefully comprehend the chants of the 2 cultivation methods. When he was comprehending the chants of Ancient Beast Godly Body, a light suddenly flashed in his mind. The most difficult part of cultivating this cultivation method was to fuse with beasts, and they had to be powerful beasts. In today's world, beasts were too rare. If he wanted to cultivate this cultivation method, he had to make a special trip to the demonic Miasma mountain range. For Ling Shiqi, he had always been short on time. How could he have time to go to the demonic Miasma mountain range? This was also one of the reasons why he hadn't made a decision yet. But he suddenly remembered that the beasts mentioned in the cultivation method might not necessarily be beasts. Wasn't the evil creature that he and Nine Leaf killed a few days ago also a strange beast? According to Nine Leaf, That thing had been dead for God knows how many years, but it still maintained such a powerful combat strength. It was definitely a very powerful beast. If he could fuse with it, it would definitely increase his strength. Compared to its 7 planets Black Sun technique, Ancient Beast Godly Body was more suitable for Ling Shiqi. So he made his choice. At the entrance of the Blood Book Palace, Ling Shiqi got a copy of the cultivation method. He only had a month to cultivate it. After a month, the cultivation method would self-destruct. For Ling Shiqi, who had unlimited skill points, it was naturally not a problem. After getting the cultivation method, Ling Shiqi immediately rushed back to the Formless Palace. He was afraid that if he delayed any longer, Nine Leave would cause trouble. When he returned to his small courtyard in the Formless Palace, he found that Nine Leave was obediently waiting in the courtyard. He was finally relieved. But he still looked at Nine Leave suspiciously. It was a bit unbelievable that Nine Leave could be so obedient. Why, surprised. Nine Leave teased, to tell you the truth, my primordial spirit has already explored the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Unfortunately, there are many places that are heavily guarded and I can't move an inch. At this time, Ling Shiqi realized that Nine Leave, as a 7th-rank great beast that was good at the Tao of Soul, must have cultivated a primordial spirit long ago. Perhaps it was because Nine Leave's primordial spirit had also recovered because he had reverted to a rank 5 demonic beast. Thus, he had the ability to let his primordial spirit leave his body. With the strength of the 9 abandonment primordial spirit, it was definitely far stronger than the Ling Shiqi. It was completely capable of roaming the 4 seas. This was a good thing. It would save Nine Leave the trouble of running around himself. Without waiting for Ling Shiqi to speak, Nine Leave asked again, "How long will we stay here?" "I have found a way to refine the red gold earth dragon flame, but I still need some time to prepare, about 10 days. Ling Shiqi answered truthfully. 10 days. Nine Leave looked a little dissatisfied. "All right, but after we leave, you have to take me to the imperial capital with you." Ling Shiqi was shocked. Nine Leave wanted to go to the imperial capital? In Ling Shiqi's original expectation, when Nine Leave had enough time in the blood-clothed pavilion, she should be able to play on her own. With her current strength, at least in Mukan County, she could do whatever she wanted. But he had never thought that Nine Leave wanted to go to the imperial capital. What kind of place was the imperial capital? To put it bluntly, a brick could hit a large number of gang spirit realm masters there. Masters of Oneness of Heaven and Men realm were also very common. Even Tianyuan realm masters would occasionally show up. If Nine Leave, a demonic beast, dared to show up in the imperial capital, she would probably be discovered easily. And once she, a 7th-level great demon with a greatly damaged cultivation, was discovered, she would most likely be targeted by those Tianyuan realm masters and captured. The consequences would be unimaginable. Could it be that Nine Leave had become arrogant after recovering some strength? Nine Leave suddenly pinched a strange seal, and her aura immediately became a little strange. Originally, even if Nine Leave was wearing a black robe, she still faintly gave off a different feeling. But now, she was no different from a very ordinary black-clothed killer. Then Nine Leave took off her black robe and mask, revealing her true appearance. Her figure and appearance did not change at all, but in Ling Shiqi's eyes, she was not as stunning as before. She was still beautiful, but she gave people a slightly ordinary feeling. Ling Shiqi raised his eyebrows. What kind of strange secret method was this? Nine Leave smiled proudly and said, "After I devoured the old man's soul, I sorted out some ancient secret methods from the soul fragments. This is one of them. This secret method is called life-hiding technique. Although there is nothing special about it, it can fundamentally hide the aura of life. Now, even if I stand in front of a Tianyuan realm master, my true form will not be seen through. If you are willing to take me to the imperial capital, I can give you this secret method." Of course, Ling Shiqi wanted this kind of magical secret method, but the imperial capital was simply an abyss. The slightest carelessness would lead to a tragic death. With Nine Leaves' character, it was absolutely impossible for her to know her place. Just as he was hesitating, Nine Leaves spoke again, but now her tone was obviously colder. Ling Shiqi, you have to know that even if you don't take me, I can still go by myself. I just don't think it is troublesome, so I want to use your identity to enter the imperial capital openly. Moreover, it is inevitable that you will encounter some troublesome matters in the imperial capital. With me here, as long as you can give me the corresponding reward, I can help you. What are you hesitating for? Nine Leaves' words had already reached this point. If Ling Shiqi still refused, he would be ignorant of the situation. He could only nod and say, I will listen to Senior's orders. Humph, you are wise. Nine Leaf proudly raised her head, and then shot a green light directly into Ling Shiqi's forehead. That was the life-hiding technique. Since the matter was settled, Ling Shiqi returned to his room and released the goo worms to protect himself. He began to retreat. And what he needed to do was to cultivate the ancient wild beast godly body. He first released the corpse of the evil beast, and the entire room was suddenly filled with a strange evil qi. This level of demonic qi did not have any effect on Ling Shiqi. He took out the gray crystal stone. He guessed that this thing should be something similar to a demonic core. It should be the core of this demonic object. Then, he took out the ancient wild beast godly body and used his unlimited skill points to learn it. After about half an hour, Ling Shiqi's eyes shone brightly. He stretched out a finger, and the sword qi on it was sharp. Then, he turned the sword qi to himself. Pu qi. The sword qi cut open Ling Shiqi's skin, and it was still going deep, reaching his bones. Ling Shiqi endured the severe pain and cut himself bit by bit until his whole body was covered in blood. But if one looked carefully, they would find that he had carved a monster pattern on his body. The pattern was exactly the same as the evil beast. Ha! Ling Shiqi suddenly let out a low roar, and the demonic beast corpse in front of him slowly floated up. He continuously sent out seals, and the demonic beast corpse gradually shrank until it was about the same size as the blood-red pattern carved by Ling Shiqi. At this time, Ling Shiqi's eyes were serious, because the most crucial moment was coming. Chapter 503. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed the gray crystal. With a muffled sound, the evil energy contained in the crystal exploded in Ling Shiqi's body, instantly tearing apart many of his meridians. However, Ling Shiqi had no intention of stopping. He continued to make seals, and the demonic beast's corpse resonated with the crystal in his body. It was as if the corpse regarded Ling Shiqi as its core and took the initiative to integrate into it. However, the friction between flesh and blood made Ling Shiqi's scalp tingle with pain. Even if his willpower was amazing, he was almost in a state of fainting. Ling Shiqi had been frantically operating his mental power to force himself to stay awake, but this way, the pain he received became more and more clear. Outside, Nine Leaf also noticed a trace of strangeness. She muttered, "What the hell is he doing now?" However, she did not care much and continued to wander. Time passed little by little. Unknowingly, the room was covered in blood. The smell of blood mixed with the evil energy was unbearable. However, Ling Shiqi was suffering a pain that was 1,000 times worse than this. At this moment, most of the demonic beast's corpse had integrated into Ling Shiqi's body, and his body had changed a little. Especially the skin of his limbs. It had turned light gray, the color that only the dead would have. If this continued, he was afraid that he would be completely eroded by the evil energy and death energy before he could completely integrate the demonic beast's corpse. Ling Shiqi did not panic. Just as he was about to collapse, the seals in his hands changed, and an ancient aura that seemed to come from the wilds suddenly appeared. That aura instantly suppressed the evil aura and death aura that filled the room. The most difficult part of the cultivation process of ancient wild beast divine body was to integrate the beast's body. Naturally, there were ways to deal with it in the cultivation method. In this way, Ling Shiqi integrated all the remaining demonic beast's corpse into his body. Immediately, the evil qi around Ling Shiqi exploded. At the same time, the ancient and violent aura was slightly restrained, no longer suppressing the evil qi. Instead, it began to merge with the evil qi. At the same time, Ling Shiqi's body kept making crackling sounds. His body kept twisting strangely. Boom! Ling Shiqi's aura suddenly increased, and his body grew larger. He suddenly felt an itch on his shoulders, as if something was about to come out. In fact, this was indeed the case. At this moment, there were 2 bloody holes behind his shoulders, and 2 short and delicate arms that were as small as babies drilled out from them. As soon as the pair of arms appeared, they began to frantically absorb all kinds of energy in the room, as well as Ling Shiqi's qi, blood, and spiritual energy. The pair of arms grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon, they had grown to the size of an adult. Ling Shiqi actually grew 2 more arms. He immediately had a very strange feeling. He tried to control the pair of arms. However, the newly grown arms were very unfamiliar, and it was a bit difficult to control. He could only make a few simple movements. However, Ling Shiqi's transformation didn't stop there. 2 short gray horns that curved backward gradually grew on both sides of his forehead. What was even stranger was that a half-foot-long tail extended from his back. Now, Ling Shiqi looked 70% similar to the demonic beast. After all these changes were over, Ling Shiqi made the last seal. Roar! An ancient beast's roar resounded through the sky. Behind Ling Shiqi, a huge shadow of 12 feet appeared. It was the appearance of the demonic beast. Ling Shiqi's aura also rose steadily. Without using the blood mark of serenity, he was completely comparable to the 9th level of the spirit aperture realm. This was the ancient wild beast divine body. Of course, this was not a pure amplification technique. In essence, it was still a body refining technique. However, the method of refining the body was a bit different. First, you had to refine a beast. After transforming, your whole body was actually under an unimaginable burden. When you were greatly amplified, it was also constantly refining your body. The duration of the transformation was also directly related to the strength of the cultivator's body. However, who would choose to transform when they had nothing to do? In other words, this cultivation method had to be cultivated through battle after battle. Only then would it advance faster. After finally cultivating the ancient wild beast divine body, Ling Shiqi let out a sigh of relief. He first simply adapted to the state after the transformation. In the transformation state, Ling Shiqi had 4 arms. It could be said that his battle strength had directly increased. This was because the 2 extra arms could use another spiritual technique at the same time. For example, the original arms could use sword techniques, the new arms could use blade techniques, or use spiritual techniques. He alone was equivalent to having the battle prowess of 2 people. For someone like Ling Shiqi who had many spiritual techniques, it was not as simple as 1 + 1. If he were to duel with Ji Wen again, he was confident that he could kill him within 10 moves. Of course, the consumption of his spiritual power would definitely increase greatly, but compared to the increase in his battle strength, it was nothing. In addition, he had an extra tail. Ling Shiqi controlled the tail to swing gently in front of him. He saw that there was an extremely sharp needle at the end of the tail. This tail could not only help him adjust his body, but it could also be used as a means of attack. Unfortunately, Ling Shiqi was already beginning to feel a bit weak. It was obvious that he could not maintain the ancient wild beast divine body for a long time. He hurriedly cancelled the transformation. Under the circulation of his spiritual power, the wounds on his body quickly healed. These were only superficial wounds and were nothing. The troublesome part was the damaged meridians in his body and the loss of blood. Fortunately, he was also prepared and swallowed a few medicinal pills to recuperate his internal injuries and replenish his blood. However, Ling Shiqi did not close his eyes to adjust his breathing. Although his eyes were full of fatigue, they were frighteningly bright. Then his body suddenly lit up with complex and mysterious patterns. These patterns connected with each other and suddenly exuded an ancient and wild aura. This was the rank 6 secret technique that Dichuan had traded to him, Desolate Seal. This was also a type of amplification secret technique, but what it amplified was not one's cultivation or spiritual power, but one's pure strength. At the same time, Ling Shiqi's body circulated the blood kills 7 fiend art. His body was surrounded by blood and evil aura. This was not the end. He crazily mobilized the ancient wild beast divine body that he had just successfully cultivated. The evil aura and the terrifying aura of a wild beast emerged. The entire room was instantly shrouded in all kinds of strange and powerful auras. What Ling Shiqi wanted to do next was to fuse the Desolate Seal, Blood Kills 7 Fiend Art, and Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body. Chapter 504. Ling Shiqi was not whimsical. When he broke through to the Spirit Pulse realm in the Yao Miasma mountain range, he fused 3 cultivation methods together, which was the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood Record. The name of this cultivation method was long enough and seemed very powerful, but compared to Ling Shiqi's various powerful cultivation methods, it was not enough. There weren't many rank 6 cultivation methods. The 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter Art was a complete rank 7 cultivation method, and the 10,000 Spirit Devouring Art was a complete rank 8 cultivation method. These weren't things that the Heaven Fiend 9 Nether Demon Beast Sacrificial Blood Record could compare with. But then again, for Ling Shiqi, the 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter Art played more of a supporting role. The 10,000 Spirit Devouring technique was even less useful. This cultivation method needed to be combined with a large number of goo worms with different characteristics to display its true power. Ling Shiqi did not have many goo worms left, and they were all relatively low level and were not very useful. The Goo King was very convenient to use, and because of this, he did not need to use the 10,000 Spirit Devouring technique at all to use the Goo King at will. Therefore, Ling Shiqi wanted to use the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood Record as a foundation to create his own cultivation method. This was because he always had to be on guard against one person, and that was the system. When Ling Shiqi broke through to the Spirit Aperture realm, he had erased the consciousness of the system. However, before the consciousness of the system died, he had always been worried. Perhaps the consciousness of the system would reappear in the future. He was not blindly thinking. Every time he sold an item to the system, a small part of a strange power would appear in his body. So where did the rest of the power go? Ling Shiqi guessed that the power might have been absorbed by the consciousness of the system. It was just that the consciousness of the system was still very weak and could not be detected by him. And if he wanted to deal with the consciousness of the system, the cultivation methods that he cultivated from the system would be useless. Ling Shiqi also knew this, but if he did not use the system to cultivate, even if he was given a few years, he might not be able to comprehend all of the high-level cultivation methods that he had. If he wanted to increase his strength as quickly as possible, he had no choice but to use the system. This seemed to be a paradox, but Ling Shiqi had found a way to guard against the system's consciousness and make use of the system at the same time. That was to fuse cultivation techniques. Just like how fused spiritual techniques could be used to deal with the system's consciousness, as long as he fused a high-grade cultivation method, he would have the upper hand in the next battle with the system. Of course, the system's consciousness was only Ling Shiqi's imaginary enemy, but even if he guessed wrong, it was better to be safe than sorry. Moreover, the fusion of the cultivation techniques this time wouldn't be too difficult, because he planned to upgrade and expand the foundation of the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood record. The Celestial Fiend 9 Serenity's Demon Beast's Crimson Blood record contained a part of the 7 Fiend Blood art. Now that Ling Shiqi had the complete 7 Fiend Blood art, he could use this as a breakthrough. But before that, Ling Shiqi still had one more thing to do, and that was to recuperate. Just now, when he cultivated the ancient wild beast divine body, he still consumed a lot of spiritual power and blood, so he still had to adjust his state before trying to fuse the cultivation techniques. 3 days later, with the help of elixirs and high-grade resources, Ling Shiqi's injuries had mostly healed. At the same time, he hadn't been idle during these 3 days. The primordial spirit in the sea of consciousness had also been deducing the cultivation techniques. The progress was relatively smooth, and he could already try it. Next, the first thing Ling Shiqi had to do was to integrate the complete 7 Fiend Blood art into the Celestial Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood record. Doing so might cause the cultivation techniques to be unbalanced, and Ling Shiqi had to integrate the Desolation Seal and the ancient wild beast divine body before the cultivation techniques were unbalanced. Ling Shiqi began to operate the cultivation techniques in his body, and a faint demonic qi rose around his body. A few light green demonic qi appeared in his eyes, and several blood-red lines appeared on his body. Immediately, those blood-red lines suddenly expanded, almost covering 2/3 of his body, and the demonic qi were suppressed. Ling Shiqi suddenly felt the spiritual power in his body gradually become violent, and his blood was constantly surging. He knew that this was caused by the imbalance of the cultivation techniques. This was just the beginning. If he continued, the situation in his body would only get worse and worse. Therefore, Ling Shiqi knew that he didn't have much time. With a thought, his body suddenly underwent a huge change. His skin quickly darkened, and a burst of evil qi came out of his body. Horns grew on his head, arms grew on his back, and a long tail stretched out behind him. The shadow of an evil beast flashed behind him, and Ling Shiqi's spiritual power suddenly surged. The ancient wild beast divine body. This was not the end of it. After Ling Shiqi transformed, he used the Seal of Desolation, and the back of his body lit up with runes that emitted a wild aura. His muscles seemed to be on the verge of exploding, and his strength increased by another level. At this moment, Ling Shiqi's demonic qi, evil qi, and wild aura intertwined, rising and falling one after another, and collided with each other. It was easier said than done to fuse these spiritual powers together. Ling Shiqi was not in a hurry. Instead, he didn't care about these things. He saw the demonic qi that had been suppressed before appear again, and compete with the 3 powers. What was even crazier was that Ling Shiqi's eyes instantly turned emerald green, and pure demonic qi shot out like 2 laser beams. In fact, Ling Shiqi did not have much demonic qi, but when he was condensing his primordial spirit, the heavenly demon soul crystal inexplicably merged with his primordial spirit. Therefore, from a certain point of view, Ling Shiqi already had a part of the demon soul, which was why he could mobilize pure demonic qi. But in this way, the 3 powers in the room became 5. Demonic qi, demonic qi, demonic qi, wild aura, and demonic qi. And what Ling Shiqi had to do was to fuse these 5 spiritual powers. This kind of thing might not be impossible in the future, but it was definitely unprecedented. Who could have these 5 powers at the same time? If Ling Shiqi did not have the system, he would have exploded and died. Ling Shiqi's idea was crazy enough, but he was not reckless, and he would never be reckless. First, he familiarly fused the demonic qi, and blood fiend qi. Moreover, the process went very smoothly because it was the combination of these 3 powers that created the Heavenly Fiend 9 Underworld Demonic Beast Blood Roar record. On the other side, Although the demonic chi and wild aura did not fuse so smoothly, there was no rejection. This was also the reason why Ling Shiqi chose the wild beast godly body technique. This technique had been passed down for a long time, and it had some characteristics of ancient techniques, which was similar to the Desolate Seal. Moreover, the Desolate Seal was not a technique, but a secret technique, so it was not difficult to fuse it with the wild beast godly body. Not long after, Ling Shiqi successfully fused the two together, and he was ready to welcome the most difficult step of fusing the techniques. Chapter 505. On the left side of Ling Shiqi, there was a mass of gray spiritual energy. It was a mass of spiritual energy that contained blood chi, devil chi, and demon chi. On the right side, there was a light brown gas. It was a strange energy that was born from the combination of evil chi and the Manghuang seal. What Ling Shiqi had to do now, which was the most important part, was to fuse these two completely different forces. The gray gas on the left was relatively balanced and well-behaved, but the one on the right was very violent. If it weren't for Ling Shiqi's full control, it would have blown up his small courtyard. Ling Shiqi tried to slowly bring the two forces together. At first, it was relatively smooth. After all, Ling Shiqi had been fusing spiritual techniques for many years, and his control of spiritual energy was very strong. But when he was halfway through, he suddenly felt an extremely strong rejection between the two. If he wanted to fuse them directly, it would not work. Ling Shiqi sighed slightly. If that was the case, then he had to use another method. He controlled the gray spiritual energy on the left to float and slowly revolve around the light brown energy. As the gray spiritual energy revolved, it constantly condensed and became a little sticky. In the end, the gray spiritual energy turned into something similar to a spiritual spiral and wrapped around the other force. He was imitating the method used to fuse the Great Brightness Fist and Black Lotus Demon Fist. Since these two completely opposite forces could be fused, it should be easier now. Whether it was the devil chi or the evil chi, they were both yin forces. In terms of their roots, they were still similar. The only difficult thing to deal with was the Manghuang seal. So Ling Shiqi formed a spring with the light brown energy as the center, and the gray spiritual energy was equivalent to the spiritual spiral. As the two intertwined, they slowly approached each other. Ling Shiqi's eyes focused on where they intersected. Closer, closer. The spiritual spiral and the spring were finally connected. This time, there was no rejection like before. Ling Shiqi's eyes suddenly lit up with joy. However, he immediately suppressed this joy. The Heaven Fiend 9 Hell demonic beast blood scripture in his body was now out of balance, and his blood was surging even more violently. Moreover, he was also maintaining his ancient wild beast god body transformation. He was constantly consuming his spirit force and stamina, and he was enduring great pain. Moreover, this was only the beginning. The later stages would definitely be more difficult. He couldn't afford to be distracted in the slightest. Ling Shiqi's next step was to completely merge the light brown spring into his spiritual spiral. He used his mind to control the two types of energy. The gray spiritual energy gradually gathered while the light brown spring gradually dispersed and began to rotate with each other. This was a good sign. Ling Shiqi endured the pain in his body as he continued to fuse the two powers. Unknowingly, his clothes were drenched in sweat. He didn't notice it at all. He was completely focused. His face showed signs of fatigue, but the light in his eyes kept flashing. After an unknown period of time, the two balls of energy became more and more viscous, and their original color became a faint black. At first glance, it looked like a black millstone was floating in front of Ling Shiqi, slowly rotating. Ling Shiqi saw that the time was right. He suddenly put his hands together, and the black millstone suddenly twisted, as if a pair of invisible hands were constantly kneading it. Gather. Ling Shiqi shouted sternly. Majestic spirit force swarmed out, forming a small invisible storm around him. A trace of blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes. He had pushed his spirit force to the extreme. The spirit storm condensed and forcibly suppressed the black millstone. This was the last straw that broke the camel's back. In the end, the black millstone no longer existed, leaving only a fist-sized ball of faint black water in the air. In fact, this was not a ball of water, but a purine force that was born after the fusion of 5 types of energy and the extreme compression. Finally, it's a success. Ling Shiqi no longer hid his excitement. He opened his mouth and swallowed the ball of water. Then, the faint black force immediately merged into his limbs and bones. The violent spirit force and blood force in his body were instantly subdued. However, at this time, Ling Shiqi had not completely merged the techniques. But as long as the 5 types of spirit force were merged, the fusion of the techniques would naturally occur. Then, Ling Shiqi simultaneously activated the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Blood Record, the complete version of the 7 Fiend Blood Art, the Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body, and the Desolation Seal. These different techniques did not interfere with each other at all and were extremely smooth. Chi. At this moment, a low sound continued to sound. The surface of Ling Shiqi's skin was torn open, and large gray scales grew from it. Scales covered his entire body. Even his arms and tail were covered in scales. What was even more strange was that layers of black keratin were constantly growing. In the blink of an eye, a set of armor was formed on each of Ling Shiqi's key points. This included a fully wrapped helmet on his head. The helmet looked extremely fierce and was very similar to the face of a demonic beast. And each part of the armor was connected to each other by blood-colored lines, and each piece of armor was imprinted with a different number of blood-colored runes. These blood-colored lines and runes flickered, exuding a bloody and violent aura. And the overall feeling that Ling Shiqi gave off was that it was gloomy and terrifying. When all the changes stopped, it was as if endless power surged through his body. Ling Shiqi gently clenched his fist. With a muffled sound, he directly crushed the air. So strong. Ling Shiqi was pleasantly surprised. This technique combines several auras. Let's call it the Desolation Demonic Blood Beast Body. At this time, there was a strong fighting spirit surging in the depths of his body, making him want to find someone to fight now. Suddenly, a white and delicate fist containing terrifying demonic power arrived in the blink of an eye. This fist seemed to stir up the spirit force between heaven and earth, and the entire room collapsed in an instant. The person who came was Nine Leaf. Ling Shiqi didn't know why Nine Leaves suddenly attacked, but at this time, his body was filled with endless fighting spirit. He gathered all his strength and didn't use any spirit techniques. He just threw out a simple punch. When the punch came out, a 200-foot-tall demonic beast phantom appeared behind Ling Shiqi, and the phantom also threw out a punch. Rumble. The 2 fists collided, and a terrifying and violent power suddenly erupted. The ground within a 1,000-foot radius cracked, and Ling Shiqi's small courtyard was directly torn apart by the force of the fist. However, all the things that were sent flying were blocked by purple light curtains when they flew 1,000 feet away. And between the 2 people fighting, Nine Leaf took 7 or 8 steps back, while Ling Shiqi was still standing in place. Looking carefully, there were several cracks on the armor on his fist, but even so, it was enough to prove the strength of Ling Shiqi. Nine Leaf clenched his fist, his red lips slightly opened, and his face was full of surprise. You stinky brat, you actually have such terrifying power. What the hell did you do this time? Chapter 506. After forcing Nine Leaf back with a punch, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but feel excited. However, he immediately put away these thoughts. Nine Leaf's punch didn't use any spiritual skills, just pure physical strength. It should be known that Nine Leaf was not a demon beast good at hand-to-hand combat. Now that he was in human form, his strength was reduced, so his pure strength was not very strong. Ling Shiqi couldn't be arrogant. But the simple punch just now also let him know that his strength after transformation was definitely stronger than a spirit cultivator who had just entered the gang's spirit realm. Coupled with his high-level spiritual skills, he even dared to fight with a master in the middle stage of the gang's spirit realm. Facing Nine Leaf's question, Ling Shiqi first saw that the small courtyard was covered by a purple light curtain. He cupped his fist and said, "Senior, thank you for covering for me." When he was fusing the cultivation method, he didn't make a big noise, but it wasn't small either. In particular, all kinds of strange auras were raging, and the waves also spread out a lot, so it alarmed Nine Leaf. She then set up a restriction to isolate all the waves. Nine Leaf waved his hand indifferently and walked slowly around Ling Shiqi, muttering from time to time. "TSK, you really know how to make trouble. You're brave enough to refine the evil beast. That's also because Senior's super strength killed the evil beast, which gave me the opportunity to refine it. Now you're talking nicely. You'd better think about how to deal with the aftermath first." Nine Leaf pointed to the mess around and said. Ling Shiqi removed the wild evil demon blood beast body with a wry smile on his face. Previously, he only wanted to fight and didn't care about anything else. Now, including his small courtyard, a large area had been destroyed to the point that it was unbearable to look at. This was not a casual place, this was the Formless Palace. If Formless knew that he almost tore down the Formless Palace, who knew what he would do? Ling Shiqi hurriedly went to find the two disciples who took care of the small courtyard. Fortunately, they had been driven out by Nine Leaf and were not affected. "There's a problem with my cultivation method. Find some people to fix this place as soon as possible," Ling Shiqi ordered. The two of them didn't dare to ask any more questions and just went to carry out the order. Ling Shiqi immediately activated Supercilious Eyes. It was good news that he didn't see Sulwan in Formless Palace. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain things to Sulwan. Nine Leaf said sarcastically, "Someone was afraid that I would cause trouble in the Blood Garment Pavilion, and in the end, he almost caused trouble himself. He even needed me to help cover it up." Ling Shiqi also realized that Nine Leaf did not have a fixed temperament. It was as if everything depended on her mood. In the past, Nine Leaf had never been so sarcastic to him. As the saying goes, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. It seems like this sentence is also applicable to demonic beasts. Ling Shiqi pretended not to hear anything and said, "Senior, I'm going to prepare to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. We can leave in 7 or 8 days at most. Go do whatever you want. Just call me when you need to leave." Ling Shiqi turned and left. He couldn't stay in this small courtyard any longer, so he planned to go find Bing Shang. It was good to get in touch with the materials needed to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame early. After asking around, he finally found Bing Shang's residence. Bing Shang was a bit surprised to see Ling Shiqi. "Brother Ling, why are you here? But you came at the right time. I also have a question for you." "There's no harm in asking." Ling Shiqi nodded. Bing Shang asked, "How strong is Brother Ling's body?" "Brother Ling, please answer truthfully. This has a lot to do with whether or not you can refine the pure gold earth dragon flame." Refining the pure gold earth dragon flame was related to one's body. Ling Shiqi had already thought of this. That was why he continued to cultivate high-level body refining techniques. However, he really couldn't say for sure how strong his body was. After he transformed into the wild evil demon blood beast body, his strength was off the charts. However, his body under normal conditions was far weaker. He could only say, "I've also cultivated body refining techniques." However, it's hard to say how strong my body is. Is there any standard? Aha. Bing Shang paused. Brother Lang, please wait. Then, he took out a cyan lamp from his mustard seed bag. Brother Lang, I'll use this thing to release some flames. This kind of flame is quite powerful, so don't resist it. Let's see how long you can last. Understood. Come. Under Bing Shang's spirit power, the green lamp spat out qinyan. The temperature in the room rose rapidly. The flames swept through the air. Ling Shiqi was in the sea of flames. Feeling the heat of the flames, he felt it was just a so-so. He even wanted to say, that's it. Seeing that Ling Shiqi's expression didn't change, Bing Shang was stunned. He thought that there was something wrong with the flame. He subconsciously reached out and was frightened by the high temperature of the flames. Bing Shang couldn't help but reveal a look of shock and admiration. When he first entered the spirit vein realm, he assassinated a genius disciple of the Tang family. His name shook the Donglin County and he was known as the most outstanding genius in the Donglin County branch. At that time, Ling Shiqi was only at the mid-stage of the spirit transformation realm. He was just a small assassin in black. They weren't even in the same world. However, after a few years, their statuses had changed. Bing Shang didn't feel any jealousy. After all, he had seen Ling Shiqi's abnormal talent and strength in the illusion spirit secret realm. However, Bing Shang had never thought Ling Shiqi's body would be so strong. He was bathed in flames but didn't seem to be affected. This was too terrifying. Bing Shang knew that Ling Shiqi was a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts. Now it seemed that he was a triple cultivator of spirit martial arts, spirit cultivation and spirit body. Bing Shang was also surprised. If Ling Shiqi's body was strong enough, it would be easier for him to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. As long as Ling Shiqi could successfully refine the pure gold earth dragon flame, Bing Shang would be able to obtain a great reward from the Black Frost Ghost Man. Brother Leng's body is so strong. I admire it, but I still have to test Brother Leng's limit. Please don't blame me. With that, Bing Shang's spirit force surged and the qin yan quickly grew stronger. Ling Shiqi finally felt a trace of heat. He suddenly remembered that Lei Mayan had said that the various hardships they experienced in the small five-element Chaos Grotto Heaven would make them invulnerable to fire and water. He thought, it seems my body already has a very high fire resistance. He signaled Bing Shang to continue strengthening the flames. Two crystal-clear spirit veins lit up beside Bing Shang's ears. He was using his full strength. Hoo! The raging flames even caused a whistling sound. Layers of formations flashed in the room. Even Bing Shang himself had to back away from the qin yan. He looked over and found that Ling Shiqi was still standing in the sea of flames with a smile. Chapter 507. Bing Shang's mind almost went blank. Ling Shiqi's power was beyond his knowledge again and again. He couldn't help but ask, Brother Ling, are you okay? There's some burning pain, but it's still acceptable, Ling Shiqi said lightly. Bing Shang's mouth twitched. He said in a complicated tone, then let's stop here. If we increase the power of the flame, the formations here won't be able to handle it. Then how strong is my body? Ling Shiqi asked sincerely. However, Bing Shang thought that Ling Shiqi was showing off his physical body. He praised, Brother Leng's physical body is the strongest I've ever seen. Once everything is arranged, I dare say that Brother Leng has a 70% chance of successfully refining the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame. 70%. This probability was actually quite high, but there was still a risk of failure. Ling Shiqi secretly decided to take advantage of the 6 or 7 days to increase his physical strength and cultivate the cold air, striving to increase the probability of success. Bing Shang put away the Qing Yan and said, "Brother Lang, go rest. I'll take care of the materials." Ling Shiqi was an outsider in this. Even if he wanted to help, he couldn't. "Then I'll leave everything to you. Don't worry, Brother Lang." Then Bing Shang arranged a secret room for Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi didn't dare to waste any time. He immediately activated the wild demon blood beast body to refine his body. At the same time, waves of red cold energy rose around him and kept changing forms. Time slowly passed as Ling Shiqi cultivated. 7 days later, Bing Shang knocked on Ling Shiqi's secret room. Ling Shiqi knew the time was right. "Brother Lang, all the materials are set up. Come with me." Bing Shang took Ling Shiqi through layers of formations and into an extremely cold ice cave. Bing Shang introduced, "This is where Master used to cultivate. Now that he's given it to me, it's a great place to refine the flame." The moment Ling Shiqi entered the ice cave, he was greeted with a bone-piercing cold wind. He could completely endure it, but if it was an ordinary spirit aperture stage cultivator, they would have to activate their spirit armor to barely withstand it. If he refined the red gold earth dragon flame here, it would be much easier. This is a great place. This time, it's all thanks to Brother Bing. Bing Shang said a few polite words and formed a series of seals. A huge light blue array appeared in the ice cave. Once the array appeared, all the cold energy in the area was gathered into the array. The power of the ice instantly increased by several times. To refine a heaven and earth variant of the fire element, the environment is very important. With the existence of the ice cave and the formation, the environment is already perfect. Bing Shang changed the topic, but that's not enough. "I have 2 frost pills here. After consuming them, they'll form cold energy in your body. They'll protect your meridians. Although this pill can help Brother Lang in the last step, before that, Brother Lang will have to endure the pain of the cold energy entering your body." Ling Shiqi was already numb to the word pain. He took the frost pill and said, "As long as I can refine the red gold earth dragon flame, this pain is nothing." Bing Shang took out a small pile of materials. 80% of them were ice-type materials. There was also a small amount of wood-type materials. He waved his hands and a dense pure white cold energy enveloped all the materials. Ling Shiqi stared at the pure white cold energy. That was Bing Shang's zero-bound ice. Its biggest characteristic was that it had an extremely terrifying cold energy. It was a type of ice that could freeze flames. Bing Shang continued. He used the cold energy to freeze all the materials. Then, he crushed them into powder. Then, he reformed them into an ice blue bed. There were traces of green light around the ice bed. It gave people a feeling of vitality. Seeing Bing Shang's method, Ling Shiqi was quite shocked. This was a different method of refining. Unfortunately, he didn't know anything about refining, so he couldn't explain it. He could only say, "Amazing." Bing Shang took out a few more pills and said, "Brother Lang, these pills are very effective healing pills. If you can't take it in the end, take it. But that means the refining will fail." Ling Shiqi looked at the pills. Of course, he didn't want to use them. "If Brother Lang is ready, then sit on the ice bed. We can start at any time." Ling Shiqi took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and took a few breaths to get rid of all the distracting thoughts. Then, he sat on the ice bed. Bing Shang's 10 fingers shot out extremely cold threads. They formed an ice net above Ling Shiqi's head. "Brother Lang, release the pure gold earth dragon flame. Our first step is to suppress its flames." Ling Shiqi nodded. His body also emitted a crimson cold energy. The cold energy condensed into pieces of ice crystals. Then, a cloak made of holy energy appeared behind him. He clenched his fists. A blinding light shone, making him look very holy. This wasn't the end. The Goo King flew out of the pet space and turned into a set of 5-colored glaze armor. It covered Ling Shiqi's body tightly. Bing Shang was slightly surprised when he saw the crimson cold energy. However, he didn't dare to be distracted. He formed a seal with his hands and looked like he was facing a great enemy. Ling Shiqi opened the system space. With a thought, a crimson gold flame suddenly appeared. The moment the flame appeared, it violently churned. It was like a wild horse that had been restrained for a long time. As the flame burned, the surrounding air rapidly twisted. When it met the crimson ice around Ling Shiqi, half of it melted. Under the suppression of the ice cave and the formation, the temperature of the pure gold earth dragon flame was even more terrifying than Ling Shiqi expected. Just as the pure gold earth dragon flame was about to go berserk, Bing Shang made his move. The extreme cold ice net fell from the sky, trapping Ling Shiqi and the crimson gold earth dragon flame. Zero-bound ice was also a natural variant. The ice net it turned into was not normal. When it came into contact with the pure gold earth dragon flame, it didn't evaporate. Instead, there were sizzling sounds. Ling Shiqi saw that the pure gold earth dragon flame had calmed down. He knew he couldn't take advantage of it. He used the secret method in the jade slip that Bing Shang gave him. He quickly sent rays of light into the pure gold earth dragon flame. Shortly after, the crimson gold earth dragon flame's volume suddenly swelled, and its volume seemed to have increased by several tens of times. But strangely, the temperature of the pure gold earth dragon flame dropped a bit. At this moment, the ice bed under Ling Shiqi trembled. Endless cold energy poured out, forming layers of protection that kept Ling Shiqi safe. This method was to divide the pure gold earth dragon flame and then slowly consume it. Bing Shang nodded at Ling Shiqi, indicating that he could start refining the pure gold earth dragon flame. Chapter 508. Ling Shiqi's breathing was slightly hurried. He changed the seal in his hand and attracted a wisp of flame from the huge flame. It was only a wisp of crimson gold earth dragon flame, but it contained a terrifying heat that made him sweat profusely. This was completely different from the green flame he had to endure before. Fortunately, there was a lot of cold air and formations around him, so the flame couldn't hurt him at all. Then, Ling Shiqi reached out his hand. After a layer of crimson ice crystals covered it, he actually grabbed the flame. After the flame was grasped, it immediately became restless. It trembled violently in Ling Shiqi's hand, causing the crimson ice crystals in his hand to melt into nothingness. Immediately after, the great light fist force flashed incessantly, finally suppressing this wisp of flame. Ling Shiqi let this strand of crimson gold earth dragon flame float beside him, then he stretched out his hand and pulled out another strand of flame. After a while, a small ball of crimson gold earth dragon flame gathered in front of him. This was a flame that he had completely subdued. Of course, this was only a temporary subjugation. Once Ling Shiqi's frost aura or great light fist force were exhausted, the crimson gold earth dragon flames would immediately devour him. "Brother Ling, it's about time." Bing Shang's voice was transmitted over. However, this time, his voice sounded a little lacking in confidence. Clearly, Bing Shang had consumed a lot of energy from controlling the zero-bound ice for a long time. Ling Shiqi didn't have much time left. Ling Shiqi's face showed some desperation. He then controlled the crimson gold earth dragon flame around him and wrapped it around himself. In an instant, all the crimson ice crystals were burned to nothing. Even the great light fist force was flickering. Fortunately, he still had the 5-colored armor to protect him from being devoured by the crimson gold earth dragon flame. Ling Shiqi's eyes turned pale. He could see a fingernail-sized flame seed in the center of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. His next step was to take out the flame seed. This meant that Ling Shiqi was going to enter the red gold earth dragon flame alone. This kind of thing was impossible under normal circumstances, but Ling Shiqi had already controlled a portion of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. He wanted to use the crimson gold earth dragon flame to resist the crimson gold earth dragon flame. As long as he could buy enough time to retrieve the fire seed, it would be fine. Ling Shiqi didn't dare to waste any time. Both he and Bing Shang's spirit energy was quickly depleting. Thunder exploded under his feet as he used the purple extreme lightning steps and charged at the red gold earth dragon flame. At the same time, Bing Shang roared and pushed the zero-bound ice to its limit. Pure white ice crystals tore a hole in the red gold earth dragon flame. Ling Shiqi took this opportunity to dive into the red gold earth dragon flame. Entering the flames, he felt as if he had fallen into a fiery hell. His entire body was scorching hot, causing his skin to turn scarlet red. The temperature of the red gold earth dragon flame once again shocked Ling Shiqi. His movements were not slow as he walked towards the fire seed that was locked onto by the Byakugan. The fire seed seemed to have intelligence. It also sensed the dangerous aura and started to move slowly. However, the fire seed's speed was still too slow compared to Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi went straight for the fire seed and quickly grabbed it. He held something that seemed to be solid but not solid. The fire seed suddenly churned violently and the fire spirit energy in the world was mobilized by it. Unfortunately, this was the ice cave where Ink Frost Ghost Man once cultivated. There was also a formation and zero-bound ice, so there was very little fire spirit energy here. Even so, a crimson stream still appeared in the air. Fiery light flowed within, extremely dazzling. The red stream turned into a dragon and charged at Ling Shiqi. At this moment, a pure white ice spear suddenly appeared and charged into the red gold earth dragon flame and stopped the red gold earth dragon flame. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ling Shiqi quickly retreated and left the red gold earth dragon flame. He then quickly dispersed the flames on his body. He looked down and saw a mini dragon-shaped flame wriggling in his palm. He could not help but murmur, "Is this the red gold earth dragon flame's fire seed?" Bing Shang said weakly, "Brother Leng, this matter should not be delayed. While I can still use zero-bound ice, quickly refine the fire seed." Ling Shiqi's expression became even more serious. This was the most crucial step. If he failed, everything would be for naught. And to refine the red gold earth dragon flame, the last step was to swallow the fire seed. This was also the most dangerous step. Spirit cultivators would not refine their bodies. Only very rare body cultivators would refine their bodies. Ling Shiqi believed that his body was not weak, but the inside of his body was still the weakest part. Swallowing the fire seed was equivalent to using the inside of his body to withstand the terrifying flames. Not to mention the red gold earth dragon flame, even if a random thing with a strange aura entered his body, it would be enough to kill him. But Ling Shiqi did not hesitate and swallowed the fire seed in one gulp. He always believed that danger and opportunity always coexisted. If he wanted to refine the red gold earth dragon flame to increase his strength, he would have to experience all kinds of life and death situations. When the fire seed entered his body, it was like a bomb exploding. Ling Shiqi's body trembled and even became a bit dazed. His face also became extremely pale. Fortunately, he had already swallowed the cold chi pill. There was already some cold chi in his body that protected his blood vessels and also slightly weakened a portion of the flames. But this was far from enough. Bing Shang made his move again. A pure white ice crystal appeared in his palm and he pressed it on Ling Shiqi's body. Then, threads of zero condensation ice seeped in and offset a small portion of the red gold earth dragon flame. Bing Shang said weakly, "Brother Leng, I can only help you up to here. The rest is up to you." Ling Shiqi did not say anything. His mind was completely immersed in his body. Under his inner vision, all the red gold earth dragon flame had already been dispersed to each of his spirit veins. Everywhere it went, it was crazily destroying his meridians. Even if his body was strong and there was cold chi protecting his body, there were still a few spirit veins that were damaged. And at this time, the benefits of Lang Shiqi opening up many spirit veins appeared. That was, it could greatly disperse the power of the red gold earth dragon flame. In just a few breaths of time, Lang Shiqi's body was almost completely destroyed. Outside, the green light around the ice bed drilled in. Bursts of life force entered his body and continuously repaired his spirit veins. At the same time, Lang Shiqi used a secret technique to continuously devour the red gold earth dragon flame through his spirit veins. As long as he devoured all the power of the fire seed, it would be the same as refining success. Time passed bit by bit. Lang Shiqi was experiencing inhuman pain every moment. His veins were bulging and his face was pale. Occasionally, his face would twist strangely a few times. It looked very horrifying. Gradually, the green light around the ice bed became fainter and the life force also decreased. The good news was that Lang Shiqi had already devoured most of the red gold earth dragon flame. Seeing that the life force was about to disappear, Lang Shiqi made a shocking move. Boom! A strange, cold, and powerful spirit pressure suddenly appeared. It instantly shattered the formation and the ice bed. Then, a gray and black battle armor covered Lang Shiqi's body. Behind him, a demon phantom appeared. Wild demon blood beast physique. The terrifying aura of the ancient wilderness filled the ice cave. Bing Shang was frightened by Lang Shiqi's appearance and quickly retreated. Logically speaking, the red gold earth dragon flame was very effective against the wild demon blood beast physique. However, Lang Shiqi couldn't care less. He planned to imitate the evil old man's method of dealing with Buddha Lotus and use absolute strength to suppress the red gold earth dragon flame. Suppression existed, but when one's strength reached a certain level, this suppression would no longer exist. For example, if Bing Shang were to fight Extreme Fire Village's village lord Zhu Hurong could easily kill Bing Shang with one move. This was absolute suppression of strength. At this moment, the remaining crimson gold earth dragon flame in Lang Shiqi's body was already very weak. However, if he waited until his life force was exhausted and he still couldn't completely devour it, then half of his spirit veins would be burned away. This was equivalent to cutting off his future cultivation path. Therefore, Lang Shiqi could only choose to suppress and devour the red gold earth dragon flame. After transforming into the wild demon blood beast physique, the red gold earth dragon flame in his body became even more violent. However, Lang Shiqi's body also underwent a qualitative change. At the same time, he circulated his spirit energy and suppressed the red gold earth dragon flame with all his might. It works! Lang Shiqi saw that it was effective and was overjoyed. He quickly devoured the flame. After about half an incense's time, Lang Shiqi suddenly dispelled his transformation. His body also lost its balance and fell to the ground. Bing Shang subconsciously wanted to help Lang Shiqi up, but he suddenly stopped because a dazzling red gold earth dragon flame suddenly burst out of Lang Shiqi's body. The flame turned into a dragon that soared into the sky and roamed around. Everywhere it passed, large amounts of ice crystals melted and turned the ice cave into a river. Even the entire ice cave felt a bit warmer. Whoosh! The crimson gold earth dragon flames abruptly retracted back into Lang Shiqi's body. Lang Shiqi walked over with a ball of fire in his hand. Within the ball of fire, there was a faint image of a divine dragon spiraling around, but it was extremely docile in his hand. Bing Shang was shocked and said, "Congratulations on refining the red gold earth dragon flame, Brother Lang." Chapter 509. Ling Shiqi smiled, it's all thanks to Brother Bing's help. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. What he said was the truth. Actually, the materials that Bing Shang prepared didn't play a crucial role in the entire process. Whether it was the ice cave, the formation, or the ice bed, they were all just support. The most important thing was Bing Shang's zero-bound ice. If it wasn't for zero-bound ice, Ling Shiqi wouldn't have been able to go deep into the pure gold earth dragon flame to obtain the fire seed. It could also be said that if it wasn't for Bing Shang, he wouldn't have been able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. To Bing Shang, he might only be following Ink Frost Ghost Man's orders. However, Ling Shiqi still owed Bing Shang a huge favor. Bing Shang said, to be honest, when I refined zero-bound ice, it took me more than 10 years of preparation. I only finished it under my father's guidance. Brother Leng being able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame in such a short time is truly admirable. After this matter, I will cultivate here for a while. Brother Leng, please do as you wish. Ling Shiqi knew that Bing Shang's spirit power was almost exhausted. He solemnly cupped his fist and said, I will return to Formless Palace first. If Brother Bing needs my help in the future, just let me know. After that, Ling Shiqi strode away and returned to Formless Palace. A few days later, Formless Palace was already renovated. It was almost exactly the same as before. Ling Shiqi had just returned to the small courtyard when he bumped into Nine Leaf. Who would have thought that Nine Leaf would frown and float back a few steps when she saw him? You really succeeded in refining it. However, the aura on your body makes me feel very uncomfortable. The pure gold earth dragon flame was very effective against all kinds of demons. Nine Leaf was no exception. Although she wasn't afraid, the aura of the pure gold earth dragon flame made her feel uneasy. Ling Shiqi scratched his head and said, this junior was only able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame by luck. Once I can fully control it, I will be able to control it freely. Nine Leaf's beautiful eyes flashed with a purple light. I can see that your injuries aren't light. You should hurry up and recuperate. However, I will only wait for you for 3 days. It seemed that Nine Leaf had grown tired of staying in the Blood Garment Pavilion for the past 10 days. Ling Shiqi nodded and locked himself in his room. He sat down cross-legged and recuperated for a while. Then, he looked inside his body and found that there were still some residual flames flowing in each of his spirit veins. However, the current flames were not as violent as before. Instead, they were unusually docile. What was even more bizarre was that wisps of crimson flames began to merge into the damaged spirit veins. These damaged spirit veins were like rain after rain. They slowly stretched out, and the dozens of spirit veins in his body let out excited sounds. Even Ling Shiqi himself felt very comfortable. Unknowingly, more than half of his spirit veins had recovered. If one were to look closely, they would discover that the originally sparkling spirit veins had turned a light red color. Moreover, all the repaired spirit veins, flesh, and bones, whether in terms of toughness or hardness, had significantly increased. Refining the crimson gold earth dragon flame had actually helped him increase the strength of his body. This was a small surprise. As a result, he only needed 2 or 3 days to completely stabilize his injuries. Although he could not recover to his peak state, it was enough for him to fight normally. At this moment, Ling Shiqi suddenly realized. No wonder Nine Leaf said 3 days at most. She had already seen through it. In addition, he also found the fire seed of the crimson gold earth dragon flame in the spirit sea. Now, the fire seed had turned into a mini dragon and was flying freely in the spirit sea. However, it looked slightly dispirited. The refining this time had also caused some damage to the crimson gold earth dragon flame. However, at this moment, Ling Shiqi thought of another problem. That was, although he had refined the crimson gold earth dragon flame, he did not have many fire attribute spiritual techniques that he could use. He had a few high-grade spiritual techniques of various attributes. For the metal attribute, he had the spiritual techniques derived from the golden mystic yang method. For the wood attribute, he had the limitless dead wood incantation. For the water attribute, he had the continuous blue wave spear. For the earth attribute, he had the throbbing pulse of the earth. For the ice attribute, he had the crimson ice crystal technique. For the wind attribute, he had the nirvana remnant wind scroll. For the thunder attribute, he had the purple lightning thunder sound record. For the yang attribute, he had the great radiant fist. For the yin attribute, he had even more. He even had the 5 gods flowing light technique and the rare 10,000 goose spirit devouring technique. It could be said that he had all kinds of cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques. The only thing he lacked was a powerful fire attribute cultivation technique. Therefore, Ling Shiqi planned to get some fire attribute spiritual techniques on the way to or from the imperial capital. After all, he still had a large amount of high-grade resources in his mustard seed bracelet. He had to convert these things into what he needed the most. Right now, the only fire attribute spiritual technique he had was the fire symbol technique. He stretched out a finger and moved it in the air. Hula! As his finger moved, a stream of fire suddenly ignited. He wrote the word fire in front of him. Immediately after, the fire seed in his spirit seed trembled slightly. The flames of the word fire instantly turned into a crimson gold color. A terrifying wave of fire suddenly attacked. There was even a faint dragon roar in his ears. Ling Shiqi pushed lightly. The word fire whizzed out and directly smashed the door to the room. Not good. Ling Shiqi's expression changed. However, he had already used his spiritual technique and could not take it back. The word fire flew straight out. The terrifying flames burned everything in its path. In the blink of an eye, Ling Shiqi's vision opened up. All that was left was a scorched land that was several zhang wide and 100 zhang long. It was still emitting black smoke. Gulp. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but swallow his saliva. What he used was clearly a rank 3 spiritual technique, the fire symbol technique. Moreover, he didn't use all of his spiritual energy. Even if he used the fire symbol technique with his cultivation at the 6th layer of the spirit aperture realm, he would be able to display the power of a rank 4 spiritual technique. However, the hell-like scene in front of him made him a bit stupefied. He took a few steps forward. He could still feel the scorching aura in the air. Even with his body's strength and resistance to fire, he still found it difficult to breathe. It could be imagined how terrifying the flames were. This was the power of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. This was the power of a heaven and earth variant. Ling Shiqi also made up his mind, no, I have to get a high-level fire attribute spiritual technique at all costs. It has to be at least rank 5. No, rank 6. If he had a rank 6 fire attribute spiritual technique, combined with the crimson gold earth dragon flame, it would definitely become a great killing weapon in his hands. It would be equivalent to having another powerful trump card in his hands. However, just as he was secretly pleasantly surprised, a petite figure walked over. That person wasn't Jiu Li, but Sulwan. Although Ling Shiqi couldn't see Sulwan's expression, he could clearly feel her anger. Lang, 10:7. Do you want to destroy Wuxiang Palace? Chapter 5:10. 3 days later, in the Bloodkill Hall. After learning that Ling Shiqi was going to the imperial capital, the Ink Frost Ghost Man gave him a few instructions. Ling Shiqi, the imperial capital is the center of the Thunderflame dynasty's power. Don't act rashly there. Think twice before you act. Remember, you are carrying the future of the Blood Garment Pavilion on your shoulders. Ling Shiqi nodded. As for how much he understood, it was unknown. The Ink Frost Ghostman's tone changed once more. But you don't need to worry too much. Our pavilion has already arranged for 3 blood-robed assassins to help you. 3 blood-robed assassins? Ling Shiqi frowned. The difference between blood-robed assassins was enormous. The Spirit Vein Realm black-striped blood-robed assassins and the 9 Netherworld blood-robed assassins were both blood-robed assassins, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. He just didn't know what cultivation base the Ink Frost Ghostman was talking about. Ling Shiqi couldn't ask this question directly, so he beat around the bush. Vice Pavilion Master, may I know who those people are? A meaningful smile flashed through the Ink Frost Phantom's eyes. He said, the 3 of them were personally selected by our pavilion. Their strength and abilities are all exceptional. Moreover, the 3 of them are more or less related to you. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi also felt a little confused. He had only been in the Blood Garment Pavilion for a short time, and the number of people he had some sort of relationship with could be counted on 2 hands. However, he couldn't think of anyone suitable to go with him to the imperial capital. For example, Meng Ming and Yushu were definitely going to start their own blood seed project. They naturally wouldn't be able to help him. As for Bing Shang, who had helped him refine the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame, although he had great potential, his cultivation base was still too low. He definitely wouldn't be suitable. Other than those people, who else had some sort of relationship with him? Ling Shiqi couldn't think of anyone for a moment. The Ink Frost Ghostman continued, but you also know that the Blood Seed Project is extremely secretive, so those 3 can't directly go with you to the imperial capital. Don't worry, I've already arranged everything. They've already entered the imperial capital through various methods, and they'll contact you when the time is right. There's a secret code that only the 4 of you can understand. You must remember it well. The Ink Frost apparition released a stream of ghostly chi, and a stream of information suddenly appeared in Ling Shiqi's mind. He also knew the importance of the Blood Seed plan, and he said solemnly, "Disciple understands. Also, pass this mustard seed bag to Delta Origi." The Ink Frost Phantom tossed over a gray-white mustard seed bag. Bone Demon is very happy to know that the Delta Origi has also entered the Discipline Commission's headquarters. This is a reward for that girl. Ling Shiqi nodded gently and said, "Disciple will definitely do so. However, Disciple still has a question that I would like Vice Pavilion Master to answer." Go ahead. I haven't seen Master since I came back this time. I wonder where he is. Ling Shiqi asked. As one of the 9 Netherworld Blood Cloak assassins of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, Wu Xiang had been running around all year round. It was normal that he wasn't there when Ling Shiqi returned to the Blood Cloak Pavilion. However, he came back as the leader of the Elite Association, and even entered the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters. Wu Xiang must have received this news. According to Wu Xiang's temperament, he would definitely come back to show off. However, more than 10 days had passed, and Ling Shiqi was about to leave, but Wu Xiang still hadn't shown up. This made him a little confused. Ling Shiqi wasn't worried about Wu Xiang's safety. He firmly believed that in this world, no one could touch him unless it was a powerhouse of the Sky Origin stage who personally made a move. What he cared about was that Wu Xiang should at least give him some kind of reward when he came back. Originally, Ling Shiqi didn't think of this, but when he saw that Bone Demon had prepared a reward for Delta Origi, he felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't ask for any precious treasures, even a few fire attribute spirit techniques would be good enough. The Ink Frost ghostly man fell silent, as if he was hesitating about something. After a few breaths, he said, "Wu Xiang is preparing to do something very important and crazy. He can't afford to be disturbed, so we didn't inform him of your whereabouts." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi's heart clenched. Although Wu Xiang was a little unreliable, he was still good to him. At the very least, he still had some feelings of master and disciple to Wu Xiang. Now that the Ink Frost Ghost Man, a powerhouse of the Sky Origin stage, said that Wu Xiang was doing something crazy, it must be something very dangerous. You don't have to worry, we spirit cultivators go against the heavens. If we don't go through the tribulations, how can we fight against the heavens? The Ink Frost Ghost Man's tone became unusually firm. You have such a cultivation at such a young age. You were able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame, didn't you use your life in exchange for it? If your master can get through this, the blood seed plan will have a higher chance of success. Ling Shiqi agreed with the Ink Frost Ghost Man's words, but when he heard the last sentence, his mind suddenly shook. He seemed to have guessed what Wu Xiang was doing. Wu Xiang was originally at the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm, and now he was preparing to break through to the Sky Origin stage. No wonder he didn't return. To Wu Xiang, there was nothing more important than breaking through. But Ling Shiqi was still a little worried. Although he was far from reaching that level, but thinking about how the Gu God sect leader Sang Hetong had done something that angered the heavens just to break through to the Sky Origin stage, one could imagine how difficult it would be. The Sky Origin stage was the highest stage that Ling Shiqi knew of. A Sky Origin stage martial artist was enough to support a top-tier martial school. There were very few Sky Origin stage martial artists. Of course, Ling Shiqi hoped that Wu Xiang could break through successfully. Right, speaking of Wu Xiang, as your master, he should reward you. The Ink Frost Ghost Man took out a mustard seed pouch. Since he's not here, the reward can't be lacking. We don't know what he will give you, so we can only give you some spirit stones. Ling Shiqi didn't refuse. He took the mustard seed pouch and looked inside. Whoa, a total of 2,000 spirit stones were neatly arranged inside. And these spirit stones were all mid-grade spirit stones. A mid-grade spirit stone was equivalent to over 100 normal spirit stones, which meant that Ling Shiqi suddenly had a huge sum of 200,000 spirit stones. Previously, he had squeezed Zhuge Puhe, Wu Diao, and the others dry, but he had only obtained 60 to 70,000 spirit stones. It was clear that the Ink Frost Ghost Man was really generous. Just as he was about to thank him, the Ink Frost Ghost Man waved his hand and said, "Enough nonsense. Quickly establish a firm foothold in the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. This disciple will do his best. Go." After leaving the Bloodkill Hall, Ling Shiqi didn't rush to the Imperial capital. Instead, he made a detour to the Bloodcloak Hall. He didn't come here to accept a mission, but to gather information. The information he wanted was about the Southern Divine Peak's worldly manifestation. It wasn't easy for him to come to the Mukan County, so he naturally wanted to go to the Southern Divine Peak to find Ozu and ask for the follow-up to the 1,000 Transformations Illusory World Art. Unfortunately, according to the information, the Southern Divine Peak's worldly manifestation had appeared more than half a month ago. This meant that it would take at least 2 months for the next worldly manifestation to appear. Ling Shiqi didn't have that much time, so he could only put this matter on hold for now. However, he had gained a lot from this trip. Not only did he fuse with the wild demonic blood beast body, but he also refined the crimson gold earth dragon flame. It could be said that his strength had skyrocketed, so he should be satisfied. In the end, he bid farewell to Meng Ming and Bing Shang. He also paid a visit to the previous Grand Pavilion Master of the Donglin County branch, Ghost Art. Then, he set off for the Imperial capital with 9 leave. Chapter 5:11. The Imperial capital was located at the center of the Thunderblaze dynasty. The Thunderblaze dynasty had a total of 36 prefectures scattered in all directions, and the Imperial capital was equivalent to the 37th prefecture. Because the Imperial capital was too big, it was as big as half of the prefectures. In all 8 directions of the imperial capital, there was a military city that protected the imperial capital tightly. The imperial capital was also divided into 3 parts. The outermost part was called the outer city, and most of the people living here were ordinary people. It was not accurate to call them ordinary people. Although these people were not spirit cultivators, they were all rich and noble. It could be said that if you could settle down in the imperial capital, it would be the glory of several lifetimes. The outer city was extremely large, and with the speed of an ordinary person, it would take them a few months to walk around the imperial capital once. Further in was the inner city. This inner city was similar to the demon-suppressing city in the demonic miasma mountain range, and only spirit cultivators had the qualifications to enter. Every street here was a spirit cultivator street, and there were spirit cultivator shops everywhere. Most of them were opened by various sections. Of course, the sects that could open shops in the inner city were all under the command of the Thunderblaze dynasty. For example, no matter how strong the Mountain Sea sect was, it was impossible for them to open a spirit cultivator shop in the imperial capital. The inner city could be considered the place with the most spirit cultivators in the Thunderblaze dynasty. As far as the eye could see, there were experts of the 4 realms of heaven and earth everywhere. Especially spirit cultivators of the Spirit Pulse realm, they had almost become a common cultivator. It was also because of this that the imperial capital was afraid that some high-level spirit cultivators would cause trouble in the inner city, so they spent a huge price to set up a formation in the inner city. Furthermore, there were always patrols patrolling the area. Even the weakest soldiers were at the Spirit Pulse realm, and even the captain was at the Spirit Aperture realm. Occasionally, you would even see experts of the Unity of Heaven and Man realm patrolling. As a result, there were not many who dared to cause trouble in the inner city. Other than the outer city and inner city, the imperial capital was at the center of the imperial capital. The imperial capital was the true core of the Thunderblaze dynasty, and it was impossible for outsiders to take a step into the imperial capital. Even people like Eunuch Gao and Lei Mayan had to go through a complicated inspection when they entered the imperial capital. No one could be careless. Therefore, only a few people knew about the situation inside the imperial capital. Outsiders could spend their entire lives without being able to see the slightest bit of information. On this day, Ling Shiqi and 9 Leave came to the imperial capital together. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh as he gazed at the imperial capital's towering city walls that stretched as far as the eye could see. The city walls were at least 30 meters thick and were covered with countless spirit arrays and restrictions. It was as if the imperial capital had been turned into a military fortress. As expected of the imperial capital. Just these walls alone are 100 times stronger than demon subduing city. Purple light flickered in 9 Leaves' eyes. Clearly, he had seen some clues. Ling Shiqi also secretly glanced at 9 Leave with supercilious eyes, but he couldn't see anything. He was a little envious of 9 Leaves' eyes. They were even stronger than supercilious eyes. The inspection in the imperial city was very strict. Everyone who entered or left the city was strictly screened. Fortunately, Ling Shiqi had Eunuch Gao's token, so the two of them entered the outer city without a hitch. Upon entering the city, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh, "Is this really a city?" He didn't see anything else. All he saw was a large continent that was a few hundred meters wide. It went straight out of his field of vision and seemed to have no end. Ling Shiqi had already opened his eye aperture. His vision was extraordinary. He could easily see things 10 kilometers away. It was obvious how long this road was. He quickly opened the system map and found that this road led directly to the inner city. The distance between the two was at least 100 to 200 kilometers. Was this really a city? Ling Shiqi originally thought that he had seen a lot, but now it seemed that his vision was still a little narrow. Not only him, but even 9 Leave, a 7th-rank Great Yao, showed a surprised expression. Anyone who saw their expression smiled knowingly. They knew that it must be their first time in the imperial capital. After that, the two of them didn't stay in the outer city for long. Because the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission headquarters were in the inner city, they directly rushed to the inner city. With their speed, they could arrive very quickly. However, they were in the city after all. There were many inconveniences. The two of them walked for more than 2 days before entering the inner city. After entering the inner city, the biggest difference for Leng Shiqi was the spiritual energy. The spiritual energy here was very abundant. It was not inferior to the treasured land of a second-rate sect. Furthermore, everywhere he looked, there were spirit cultivators and colorful small formations. This was simply a holy land for spirit cultivator. Nine Leaves' eyes instantly looked left and right. She impatiently said, "Go to your Dark Thunder Guards. I'll go play by myself." Before she could finish speaking, she had already run off. Leng Shiqi rubbed the space between his brows. Hopefully, Nine Leaf wouldn't cause any trouble. There were too many people in the Imperial City who could deal with her. She shouldn't play around and lose her life. Leng Shiqi couldn't control Nine Leaf anyway, so he was too lazy to worry. He looked at the spirit cultivator shops everywhere and smiled. He turned and walked into a shop that sold cultivation methods and spirit skills. Not only did he lack fire cultivation methods, he also lacked all kinds of 5th-level cultivation methods. With all his current cultivation methods, he could open about 270 spirit cavities. This sounded like a lot, but it was still far from opening all 360 spirit cavities in his body. Only cultivation methods of the 5th step or higher had a method to open spiritual cavities. What was even more troublesome was that the remaining spirit cavities were relatively unpopular. Ordinary 5th-level cultivation methods couldn't do it. This was similar to the problem he faced when he was in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. What he needed the most were the more unpopular cultivation methods. Not long after, Leng Shiqi resentfully came out. There were indeed 5th-level cultivation methods in this shop. The prices were all in the tens of thousands of spirit stones, but the key was that they weren't selling them. Or rather, they weren't selling them to him. At the beginning, after Leng Shiqi spoke of his intentions, he was led to a private room. However, when the other party asked about Leng Shiqi's identity, he subconsciously wanted to hide his identity and said that he was a rogue cultivator. However, who would have thought that the other party would be so angry and immediately start to act perfunctorily? In the end, they used all kinds of reasons to invite Leng Shiqi out. This wasn't because they were snobbish. After all, there were many low-key big shots in the imperial capital. The people in the shop never dared to offend any customer. The reason why they did this was because 5th-level cultivation methods were too rare. These people didn't earn spirit stones by selling 5th-level cultivation methods, but through connections and favors. None of the people who could buy 5th-level cultivation methods lacked spirit stones. Since they could take out spirit stones, why not sell them to those with noble status? Therefore, all these high-level rare resources were always specially prepared for high officials and nobles. After understanding this point, Leng Shiqi decided to first go to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters to get a proper identity. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi understood that the Yin Thunder Guards were intelligence personnel, and the Zhan Thunder Guards were combat personnel. No wonder those people with black clothes and purple stripes had higher cultivation. At this moment, a hidden Thunder Guard walked past them. This hidden Thunder Guard had a cloak on his back. That person continued, "The one who just walked past is the hidden Thunder Guard's envoy inspector. You have to be at least at the Spirit Aperture realm to take up this position. There are also inspectors on the War Thunder Guard side, but the cultivation requirements are higher. They must be at the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. Of course, this is only a theoretical standard. In fact, the Hidden Thunder Guard's envoy inspector was generally qualified to be a master of the gang's spirit realm. The Hidden Thunder Guard was a real power figure. He could command a whole guard and hold a lot of power in his hands. In other provinces and counties, even the Great Hidden Thunder Guard had to be polite to him. I see that you have an extraordinary temperament. I think you can take up the position of Hidden Thunder Guard. Lang Shiqi secretly estimated that with his current strength, it was not a problem for him to serve as the Hidden Thunder Guard. He asked, "What's above the Hidden Thunder Guard?" "Air." The man froze for a moment, and then quickly said, "Above that is the eunuch envoy. The weakest one is at the late stage of the gang's spirit realm. People at this level have a certain right to speak even in the imperial capital. Even the Hidden Thunder Guard of the Unity of Heaven and Men realm has to be afraid of him." Eunuch envoy. Lang Shiqi suddenly thought of the eunuch Gao's token of eunuch Gao. At that time, eunuch Gao also said something similar. Did eunuch Gao want him to serve as the eunuch envoy directly? It was good to be in a high position, but he could foresee that there would be countless troubles waiting for him. This position was not easy to sit in. Above the Hidden Thunder Guard is the Deputy General Manager. There are only 36 Deputy General Managers in total, corresponding to 36 provinces and counties. They have great power and directly belong to the 4 General Managers. Generally speaking, the 4 General Managers have a lot of things to deal with. Many things are handled by the Deputy General Managers, so you can't offend them. As for the 4 General Managers and the Great Commander, I dare not say more. The man was cautious in his words and actions. He dared not say more about the 4 General Managers and the Great Commander. Lang Shiqi didn't care. He had a general understanding of the structure of the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard. Soon they came to a courtyard with the words, "Cold Nether Pavilion" written on the door. He knew that this must be the place where eunuch Gao was. The man cupped his hands and said, "Sir, this is as far as I can go. By the way, what's your name?" Lang Shiqi nodded slightly and asked. The man's expression changed. Since he was asked for his name, it meant that he had shown his value. He quickly said, "I'm Lin Min, right?" "Sorry to trouble you," Lang Shiqi said politely. "I dare not. It's my honor to be able to lead the way for you, sir." Lin Min immediately bowed. Lang Shiqi's eyes flashed. He thought to himself that even a gatekeeper in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard had to be so cautious in his words and actions. If he wanted to gain a foothold here, he had to tread on thin ice and be careful everywhere. However, if he really did it step by step, he didn't know when he would be able to rise to the top. Therefore, this path wasn't suitable for him. After sending Lin Min away, Lang Shiqi finally met eunuch Gao after a few twists and turns with the token. At this time, there was another person standing beside eunuch Gao. This person had a pale face and no beard. He looked like a teenager. His eyes were sharp and his clothes were similar to eunuch Gao's. He should be the same kind of person as eunuch Gao. "You go back first. I will consider this matter," eunuch Gao said expressionlessly. The teenager saluted and left. From beginning to end, he didn't look at Lang Shiqi. Lang Shiqi then cupped his fist and said, "Disciple greets master." Although he was now in the Dark Thunder Guard, in fact, he should be called by his position. However, Lang Shiqi didn't have any identity now, so he called him by the identity of master and disciple. Eunuch Gao's eyelids moved slightly, and he said straightforwardly, "There are 2 major systems in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, namely the Hidden Thunder Guard and the War Thunder Guard. You should know which system you want to enter." Lang Shiqi didn't hesitate and said, "Disciple wants to become a War Thunder Guard." Compared with the Hidden Thunder Guard, the War Thunder Guard was more suitable for his style. The War Thunder Guard looked more dangerous, but relatively, there were more opportunities to make contributions. Eunuch Gao gave a look as if he had expected it. Ling Shiqi asked at this time, Master, since I have entered the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, what will happen to my identity as the Great Supervisor in the Western Wilderness Prefecture? This was also what he had always cared about. The Western Wilderness Prefecture was his team that he had fought hard for, and he had also placed many people from the Blood-Clothed Pavilion. It would be a pity to give it up like this. Moreover, he had also arranged a backup plan in Zhulu State. Without the right of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, his future plans would be difficult. Eunuch Gao smiled and said, Your ambition is not small. You can have the identity of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, but you can only start from the position of the supervisor. Chapter 5:13. In some sense, there was still fairness in this world. If you wanted to be an imperial supervisor, you had to give up your foundation in Western Wilderness Prefecture. If you didn't want to give it up, you could only choose the inferior position of supervisor. According to Lin Min, the standard for an imperial supervisor was the late stage of Gang's spirit realm. With his current strength, he could barely fight with someone in the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm. As for those in the late stage, he couldn't afford to offend them. Therefore, he couldn't be an imperial supervisor for the time being. I choose supervisor. This is the imperial supervisor token. Master, please take it back. He held out the imperial supervisor token with both hands. Eunuch Gao's eyes flashed with appreciation. You're an ambitious man. I've seen a lot of people like you, but it's rare to see someone who can control his ambition. Besides, we never take back what we've given out. The Imperial Supervisor token is with you. When the time is right, you can take up the post yourself. Ling Shiqi thought to himself that Eunuch Gao's question was actually a test of his temperament. Thank you, Master. He quickly put away the Imperial Supervisor token. As long as he had the Imperial Supervisor token, he could be promoted to an Imperial Supervisor at any time, which meant that Eunuch Gao had paved the way for him in advance. There were many masters in the late stage of Gang's spirit realm in the headquarters of Dark Thunder Guards, but the number of eunuchs was limited. Therefore, it was not enough to be promoted to eunuchs only if one had the ability, qualifications, and connections. Ling Shiqi had to sigh again. In fact, there was no fairness in the world. Come here. Eunuch Gao called, and a man walked quickly to him. Ling Shiqi glanced at him and found it was an acquaintance, Wu Diao. They hadn't seen each other for a while. Wu Diao had a mustache on his lips, which made him look older and more confident than before. After the elite meeting, Wu Diao came to the imperial capital with Eunuch Gao. It seemed that he had been doing well with Eunuch Gao. Eunuch Gao said briefly, "Take him to the post." Wu Diao bowed and said, "Yes, Master." After coming out of Eunuch Gao, Wu Diao immediately changed his expression. He pulled Ling Shiqi to him and said with a shifty look, "Brother Xingji, why are you so late? You're also an envoy inspector, right? Do you know how much profit an envoy inspector can make?" Ling Shiqi secretly smiled. No wonder Wu Diao's face was ruddy. It turned out that he had gained a lot of benefits. Ling Shiqi cupped his hands and said, "I have many trivial matters to attend to. I have no choice but to do so. I will need Brother Wu's help in the future." "Ha ha ha, you flatter me." Wu Diao's smile deepened. Brother Xingji is the leader of the elite association. His future achievements are immeasurable. Moreover, this matter hasn't been publicized yet. Otherwise, Brother Xingji would definitely be the center of attention. Let's go, I'll take you through the procedures first. Along the way, Wu Diao enthusiastically introduced Ling Shiqi to the situation in Dark Thunder Manor. He familiarly led Ling Shiqi through the process. Soon, he received the inspector's token and clothes, as well as the necessary resources. Then they turned left and right and came to a courtyard with 29 written on the door. Wu Diao sighed and said, "Brother Xingji, this courtyard is the War Thunder Guard's 29 guards. Now, only here is a vacancy for an envoy inspector. It must be said that your luck is not very good this time. The 29 guards suffered heavy losses in the mission not long ago. Of the original dozen people, only 5 returned. Dark Thunder Manor has always been short of manpower. I'm afraid there will be no manpower for you recently. But Brother Xingji, you don't have to worry. If you need, you can come to the 12 guards at any time to find me. I will definitely be at your beck and call." 29 guards that suffered heavy losses fell into the hands of Ling Shiqi. He was definitely not happy. And it seemed that the mission carried out by the War Thunder Guard was also very dangerous. There were not many people available in his hands. He couldn't be asked to fight alone, right? It was not impossible to ask Wu Diao for help, but then he would owe him a favor again. Brother Wu is generous. If I really encounter difficulties, I won't be polite. Ling Shiqi still responded. Wu Diao laughed and said, "Haha, Brother Xingji, you don't have to be polite. You go in and rest first. I'll come back in the evening to welcome Brother Xingji. Then it's better to be polite." "Okay, I'll come find you then. I'll take my leave first." After saying goodbye to Wu Diao, Ling Shiqi stepped into the 29 guards' courtyard. The courtyard was not small. There were dozens of houses neatly arranged and a martial arts practice field. At this time, there were 5 figures sitting in the martial arts practice field. Looking from afar, it was a bit bleak. Ling Shiqi did not hide his footsteps as he walked over. As soon as he got close, the smell of wine floated into his nose. The 5 people also quickly noticed the footsteps behind them, but only 2 of them turned their heads. One of them had a pale face and an ordinary appearance. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s. The other person was strong and had a fierce expression. A pair of bell-sized eyes looked a bit scary. When they saw Ling Shiqi wearing a purple cloak, they guessed his identity. The 2 of them bowed at the same time. Subordinate He Fei Chen greets Envoy Inspector. Subordinate Lu Zhao greets Envoy Inspector. He Fei Chen was the pale-faced man and Lu Zhao was the strong man. Both of them were at the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. No need to be so polite. I am Lu Xingji, the newly appointed envoy inspector of the 29 guards. What is the situation here? Ling Shiqi's expression was cold and his tone was cold. Although Wu Diao said that the 29 guards suffered a heavy blow and lacked manpower. But other than the original dozen or so battle thunder guards, there should be some intelligence personnel and servants. No matter what, it shouldn't be so bleak, right? He Fei Chen and Lu Zhao did not answer. Instead, they glanced at the 3 people who still had their backs to them, especially the one with white hair. These 3 clearly knew that the new envoy inspector was coming, but they still turned a blind eye. This was already a crime of disrespect. But the white-haired man still did not turn around. Instead, he said with an old and sad voice, "The 29 guards are about to scatter. If Lord Lu wants to show off his power, wait until after the reorganization." Gudu. The 2 people next to the old man picked up the wine jug and drank by themselves. They were too lazy to even say a word. Ling Shiqi frowned. If he only had 2 normal people under him, then what was the difference between him and a general without an army? Looking at the 3 people with their backs to him, his eyes flashed with hostility. Immediately, Ling Shiqi reached out with one hand. Spirit chi surged and hundreds of cold underworld silk intertwined with each other and attacked the hearts of the 3 people. Ling Shiqi's sudden attack shocked everyone. He Fei Chen and Lu Xiao quickly dodged and exclaimed at the same time, Spirit Aperture Realm's 6th layer. Cold Underworld Scripture. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.